morning, everyone. Welcome to the February business meeting of the Louisiana Public Service Commission. Downtown Baton Rouge, Louisiana, our state capital. We got a lot of good guests here, and I want to welcome all of you folks. You'll always stand up and do our pledge and our prayer, and if y'all don't mind. You know, one thing I've noticed in a lot of the meetings I go to that open like this, some people do the pledge ahead of the prayer, you know. And my question is, which one of those things started first with the Creator? Was it creation or was it America, you know? I think America was in the Creator's thoughts, but America wasn't even existing during creation, except a spot on the map became. So let's open with a word of prayer and remember the Creator first. I think we need to honor Him. Our Father, our God, thank you for what you've done for us. Thank you for the cross. And thank you for creating our great state of Louisiana and our great country of America. And as public servants, I ask you to help us to do your will. Just lead us in all the things we do and say, that we might honor you and honor the people we serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, y'all can be seated. We'll start out with some any kind of information from the staff over there.
Yes, sir. I know Secretary Fry has something he'd like to read, but also related to the agenda. So we do have 15 items today. Taking Exhibit 15 out of order, that will be first. And then we have Exhibit 4 and Exhibit 14 that are being deferred. 4 and 14 are deferred.
Okay, I know we're looking for Commissioner Campbell. Anybody got a word on him? Where he's at?
I haven't heard. In fact, that I had an announcement I wanted to read, but I was kind of waiting on him to be here for that one. So we might defer that announcement until he gets here.
Any other announcements here?
One other announcement too, though, and I know we're making the arrangements, but just reminding everyone the April B&E will be at Cypress Bend on the regularly scheduled date. We're not changing that date. And I believe we are working with Commissioner Couson for the May B&E to be in Lafayette. We don't have it completely finalized, but we're close.
I have one announcement, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, hold on just a second. Since we talked about April and the beautiful Toledo Bend area, and it's my pleasure to host that again in my area. Of course, that's over in the Campbell's area also. We usually start these meetings at 9, and I want to try to be on time, and appreciate y'all's assistance in there. But Toledo Bend will be 10 o'clock. We're going to back it off an hour for some of you early morning golfers and fishermen and all that kind of thing. So, but it's going to be casual. I don't want anybody showing up with a suit and tie on up there. And it's going to be flip-flops and shorts. We're going to have a good time. For y'all's information, for some of you, there's still some people that haven't been to Toledo Bend. That lake runs from Shreveport down to Leesville. At the bottom of that lake, there's a 60 megawatt generator generating electricity, green, clean electricity. And it's a wonderful place. It's a really good economic impact to that area. That's mostly SWEPCO and a little FLECO. So it's just a great place. We're going to have a good time. So I hope everyone here will come. So Commissioner Scametta, you have something?
Yes, sir. On March 11th, and I think, Brandon, you'll have to get the details on this, the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank, is going to be hosting the Frontiers Initiative, which we're members of as a commission. We're going to do this in Baton Rouge, and I believe it's going to be at LSU. It's going to be panels about advanced nuclear technology. Then this is going to be, the last one was held in Utah. This one's going to be held in Louisiana. and it'll be something for folks that are interested in this can get in contact with you, Brandon, and make a list, and we'll try to get them involved to where they can attend.
We'll push that information out. We'll get it on that topic too. For those of you who aren't aware, Commissioner Scametta presented, I believe that was last week. The days are blurring together.
Yeah, I know. I can't
Last
remember.
Tuesday, to a joint Natural Resources Committee about the Commission's efforts in nuclear. Kind of an overview over the Lance report. Lauren and myself were there as well. There was a lot of interesting discussion on what we need to do to go forward.
We're going to be setting a date for the next technical conference for the Lance team. That's going to be about re-regulation of nuclear, more about bureaucratic issues, and also about finance issues. And so as soon as we get some dates on that, we'll have you publish that and get that out.
And I did get a text while we were talking from Joe that they were about a minute out.
Great. Commissioner Cusson, do you have anything for us today?
No, sir.
Everything good in Lafayette? Okay.
Looking forward to our May meeting.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Commissioner Lewis, you got something for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to welcome two new members of my staff. They're not present, but I know they're watching online, Rula and Matt. As you know, I embarked on a partnership with New York University Law and Impact Environmental Center to bring on fellows to learn about the regulatory process. Rula and Matt both bring significant amount of experience, one graduating from New York University Law School and the other graduating from the University of Loyola at Chicago. They started in our office last week, and so we wanted to officially welcome them to the commission and part of the District 3 staff. Secondly, I would like to talk about what we have seen federally around some of the programs that are important to Louisiana. As we know, there have been some recent federal funding freezes at the EPA and the DOE that affect many programs that benefit Louisianians, especially when we talk about LAHEAP. LAHEAP is the program that provides heating and cooling assistance for Americans who are struggling to pay their bills. Roughly 60,000 Louisianians receive these benefits, even though 600,000 Louisianians qualify for these benefits. It's important that our congressional delegation recognize the importance of protecting these programs to ensure that Louisianians can stay in their homes and afford their utility bills. Also, that we continue to have the investments of the $156 million that was granted to the state for the Solar for Y'all program that would bring solar energy at community-based and residential base to Louisianians who are disaffected. This would affect all of our districts and our entire state. And so while we navigate this, I would encourage everyone to ask our congressional delegation to protect these two programs from any federal cuts. And lastly, while we're here, I could not be remiss to celebrate Black History Month. February.
How you doing?
Hello, Mr. Thank you, Commissioner. I would like to commemorate Black History Month as we celebrate the achievements of many African Americans who have made their way in the energy market. I specifically want to give a shout out to former FERC Chairman Willie Phillips, former FERC Commissioner Colette Honorable, and many others who paved the way to ensure someone like me could be in regulatory affairs. I think it's important at these times that we do not negate from our history and reflect on the multiple achievements that Black Americans have made, not only here in the state of Louisiana, but in this nation. It is not remiss on me that in our state's history, I am only the third Black person to ever serve on this commission. I was born I was born 7 months before the first Black person to ever serve on the commission, Miss Irma Muse Dixon, was appointed. And so as we talk about our history, we have to also talk about our legacy. And so that is why I honor those who come before me and will continue to celebrate Black History Month from now and forevermore. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Secretary Fry, you had something to say?
Yes, we do have a sad announcement. I want to make sure Joe was here for this, but I want to read something that Commissioner Campbell had sent out to announce the passing of Joe's father, former Shreveport City Councilman Joe Shine. A dedicated public servant, mentor, many, champion for the people of Council District F, and father of LPSC District 5 Executive Assistant Joe Shine II. Joe was a retired educator, skilled public official, and tireless advocate for his district and beyond. His heart for the community left a mark in Shreveport. Joe served in the Shreveport City Council for a total of 23 years, beginning in November of 1982, and continued with brief interruptions until December of 24. He pushed improvements in infrastructure, public safety, and recreational opportunities for children and seniors. His passion for education and community development was evident in the initiatives he championed. Joe believed that when a community is uplifted, its people thrive. Before entering politics, Joe was a longtime coach and educator in Caddo Parish schools. He held an undergraduate degree from Grambling State University and was the first African American to earn a master's degree from Louisiana Tech. His religious faith, leadership skills, and compassion were shaped by his upbringing in Grambling as a son of educators and the Methodist minister. His voice was one of strength, reason, and love for his family and his city. Joe is survived by his wife, Vertus, and his two twin sons, Joe Jr. and Jacoby. To the family and loved ones of Joe Shine, we extend our condolences. His life was filled with purpose and service to community, and his influence will live on in the lives he touched. So, condolences to Joe and Joe's family.
Let's have a moment of silence for this great young man that passed away. Thank you, Joe, for being a part of our family here, and thank you, Secretary Fry, for reading that, and I'd also call on to Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. Joe Shine was Joe Shine Senior. Joe Shine Junior is right there. Joe Shine Senior was a pioneer up in our area. He was on he was on the school board, and he was also on the city council, police jury. He was a coach. He was a nice fellow, good mentor for a lot of people, good coach, had a lot of great athletes played for him. So I went to his funeral over at Grambling. It was very nicely done, a lot of nice people there. So I know we're all share that when you lose your dad, that's a big deal, or your mother, it's a big deal. But he was a fine guy, people liked him, and he was a man's man. He stood up, and when he spoke, people listened. So thank you.
All right, any other? Okay,
That's all the announcement staff have.
okay, Ms. Bowman.
So we're taking exhibit item 15 up first, which is undocketed. It is the election of the 2025 vice chairman at the request of Chairman Francis. And just to let the commissioners know, we do have some public comment.
Okay, well, we'll all address them. I'd like to move that we replace Commissioner Lewis as vice chairman with Commissioner Eric Scametta. And is there a second?
A second.
A second by Commissioner
I object.
Costa. Okay, and there's a
And
new
I
objection.
want to say something.
And we'll have a discussion.
Yes.
And,
Yes, sir, we need to have a
comments.
discussion before we do a roll call.
yeah,
vote.
let me address Mr. Colby Cook to give us a little assistance here. We'd like to ask that people keep their comments down to 1 to 2 minutes, and if that's possible, and not to duplicate, their particular, doctor, whatever they have to say. So, and then after that, I'd like to open up with Commissioner Campbell. Okay?
Right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Is Brad Mittendorf around? I need to borrow somebody's glasses. I didn't bring mine.
Just don't make me read anything until then.
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. I won't bother Brad anymore. I'll just look to you.
Wait, now I'm gonna need those back, Foster, when I gotta read.
Thank you for, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me. It's a funny situation we find ourselves in today, and I believe in being fair. And Mr. Our good man here, I don't think you mean what you said, and I believe in forgiveness. But I think you have to want it too. and Mr. Lewis. I don't think anybody needs to be preaching today because, Mr. Francis, I was making a speech one time, and I know what you did behind my back. You had a big poster, bigger than this big, and you went all around the room, just like this. Bullshit, right behind my back. You remember that?
No, sir, I don't.
Well, everybody else does. Shake your head if you remember that. You can shake it in here. It's all right. You're not going to get kicked out. You absolutely did that. I was making a point, and you went behind my back. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And I thought that was very inappropriate. As inappropriate as what he did. Mr. Lewis, it was inappropriate. I was trying to make a speech, and I meant what I was very passionate of what I was trying to do. And when the TV camera was there, you were parading this around the room. So anyway, nobody's a preacher in the room, I hope. If you are, you need to pray for us. But anyway, I can't convict Mr. Lewis when we've had action from other people. And the other people are want to convict you. And I felt like the devil that day because I was really for what I was for. And I thought it was foolish, but it happened. So I can't vote to kick you out of the chairmanship because I've seen other things happen here just as bad and just as foolish. So I'm going to try to be consistent. And I can't vote to kick you out of your chairmanship.
Okay, we have some others. If we have some others who would like to speak to this issue, if you do, I would
Yes.
just like to ask you to just line up here and we'll hear from you.
We do have one commissioner that I'd like to read into the record. We received via email due to ADA policies. Her name is Miss Michelle. You guys can come up. Her name is Miss Michelle Johnson, and her comments are, I'm a resident of PSC District 3. I am sure most of you already have your mind made up. However, I would be remiss to inform you of how wrong and short-sighted it would be to remove Devontae Lewis from his position as vice chairman. Governor Landry is eroding public faith in our institutions via his violations of ethics laws, parading a not Mike tiger at football games, targeting academic professors, and eliminating summer food programs for hungry children. If you concede to removing Devontae Lewis as vice chair, you are bowing down to Governor Landry's whims and taking away your own power as an autonomous elected body in this state. Moreover, National Rifle Association Supreme Court case determined that the First Amendment prohibits government officials from wielding their power selectively to punish or suppress speech, including through private intermediaries. The effort to remove Devontae Lewis from his position of vice chair fits neatly within this opinion as a violation of his First Amendment protections. If you vote to remove Devontae, you will become Governor Landry's puppet and receive nothing in exchange. I'm encouraging you to instead flex your power and focus on issues of ensuring utility companies maintain their infrastructure, and for you to encourage the governor to focus on getting the federal aid money for Louisiana that is currently being withheld by the Trump administration, and not meddle in the business of the Louisiana Public Service Commission or punish those who disagree with him on Twitter. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'd like to answer to that. Mr. Colby, you have a time machine over there?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Historically, when we give time restrictions, it's usually about 3 minutes. So I'll
2 to 3 minutes?
about 3 minutes is usually our historical limitation whenever we implement a limited public speaking. So
I want to make a brief statement in regards to that last statement you just read. I haven't spoken to Governor Landry since the election, and this is a decision that I felt like I had to make as chairman of the Public Service Commission. This is solely my decision and suggestion that we elect Commissioner Eric Schemata to this position. So I just hope you all understand that. Okay. Okay, ladies, we well, one of you can start. We'll go, push down and get the green light, and then just tell us your name, where you're from.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Francis, and welcome, Senator now Commissioner Kusan. I'm Melissa Flournoy. I'm a former state legislator from Shreveport. I'm the board chair of an advocacy group called 10,000 Women, and I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have known Devontae Lewis since he has moved to Baton Rouge. I have worked with him as an advocate, as an ally. I consider myself one of his mentors, but I am not his mama. And Mr. Chairman, you are not his daddy. If you have an issue, you need to address it on a professional manner with Mr. Lewis. It is not appropriate to ask to remove Commissioner Lewis. If we believe in free speech, if we believe in democracy, if we believe in the private speech of individuals on social media, this is not a cause to remove the vice chair. Frankly, I've known Foster Campbell for 40 years, and he said a lot worse about a lot of different governors. And you're not going to deny it, are you, Foster?
No.
Okay. And so we don't need to sanction the commissioner. We need to believe in free speech. And frankly, Chairman Francis, there are a lot of people that think Governor Landry's an asshole. And he did not say that in this meeting or as a public official in a public meeting. And it is completely inappropriate for you to sanction an elected member of the Public Service Commission. It sets a dangerous precedent in the state of Louisiana. It reflects poorly on you as a leader, and it reflects poorly on the Public Service Commission. And I hope you will understand what is at stake at this moment in time, where we can have a difference of opinion in political discourse, and yet we can perform our professional duties appropriately and effectively. So I ask the other members of this commission to vote no on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Can whoever's phone's going off, please turn it on silent or step outside?
Good morning. I am Alfreda Tillman Bester. I am an attorney here in Baton Rouge. I am vice chair of 10,000 Women Louisiana, as well as a board member for Louisiana Progress and former general counsel of the Louisiana State Conference of the NAACP. We are here today because Chairman Mike Francis alleges that he was embarrassed that Devontae Lewis, an elected member of this Public Service Commission, exercised his First Amendment right, a constitutional right, to free speech to criticize Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. Embarrassed? I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that Jeff Landry, governor of the state of Louisiana, posted a picture on social media of former Health and Human Services Secretary, Rachel Levin, a physician, a 4-star officer in the nation's uniformed services, beside a picture of fake vaccine denier Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in an apparent juvenile insult. An apparent juvenile insult to criticize the physical appearance of this transgender woman. I am embarrassed that the Landry administration ordered its staff to no longer promote or participate in events that promote life-saving vaccines, despite a surge in measles in our neighboring state of Texas and a surge in influenza in Louisiana itself. And if irony wasn't already on its last leg in Louisiana, I am embarrassed that the Landry administration had the unmitigated gall to say that in forbidding its staff to do their job, in saying that it was shifting away from one size fits all paternalistic guidance to a more informative approach aimed at enabling individuals in consultation with their physicians to make their own healthcare decisions. This is the same Jeff Landry who just last week sought to extradite a New York physician to Louisiana to face criminal charges alongside the mother of a teenage girl who was seeking health care related to a pregnancy. And here we are today because the chairman of the Public Service Commission is embarrassed because another elected member of this commission exercised his First Amendment right to free speech. Give us a break. The people of Louisiana need a public service commission that is focused on lowering utility costs and regulating the utility industry, not on violating the constitutional rights of Louisianans, and especially violating the constitutional rights of a duly elected public official who dared to say something critical that you perceive as critical of another elected official. I urge each of you to vote no on this obvious attempt to silence dissent in this great state. And to this motion, I dissent. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Good morning to the board and members of the audience. My name is Jacqueline Germany, and I am a community activist. I work with several organizations to ensure that we, the people, have our rights and our responsibilities acknowledged by the people who we elect to serve us. I echo all the comments that were made by my previous speakers. But today, I'm here to ask you, don't set a precedent. Don't start changing things that should not be changed. We live in a free speech democracy world. I grew up in the 60s. I'm 75 years old. I marched in the 60s for my rights. And I'm not going back. And we should not move back. We should continue to progress and move forward. We live in a changing world that's changing every day and doing things that are unspeakable, things that I never thought that I would get a chance to see. But we all have a right to free speech. And when we start squashing that and censoring that, to not allow an individual to say something and not be challenged, there's something wrong with that. We, the people of Louisiana and of this nation, deserve fair representation. I am very proud of Devontae Lewis.
Yes.
I'm very proud to have him to serve me and we the people of Louisiana. He's outspoken. He's unchallenged. He says what he means, and he means what he says. And that's me. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. Because I speak from the heart. I speak the spoken words that God placed in my heart to say. I'm a stutterer. I've stuttered all my life. But I've learned to speak it in my head before I speak it out my mouth. We all are challenged. we all make statements. And we all say things sometimes that, yes, mean it, but sometimes it comes out before you mean to say it. I'm not saying that's what Devontae Lewis did. I'm speaking for myself. But what I'm saying to you is that as board members that represent we, the people of Louisiana and of this parish, to think about what you're doing, think about what you're saying, and think about the precedents that you're setting. Because going back is challenging. And we are not going back. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and you all have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Jacqueline. Thank you.
We have one more that would like to speak and one more that's a potential. Oh, okay. Mr. Edgar Cage. And then Mr. Carlos Pollard, you may or may not have wanted to speak. Are you in the audience? Yeah, would you like to speak? Okay.
Thank you.
Ladies first.
Good morning. My name is Sherry White. I'm from the parish of Ascension. I am a retired employee of 43 years with the state of Louisiana. And I'm just in disbelief at this point that you're willing to remove an individual because of their freedom of speech. It's okay to disagree. You know, I don't agree with everything that our president is doing, but do I have a right to remove him? No. So I'm saying is that we need to find opportunities to work with individuals, even if we don't agree with some things that they may say. But to remove him from his position because of a statement he made, I think even as a human being, it would have been more appropriate to maybe have a conversation with him if you disagree with something that he said. But to remove him from his position, I just can't believe that. I can't believe that this is, in this day and time, that this is the way we're operating. And to me, to be honest with you, this is straight up racism. You know, and so we need to just deal with the monkey that's in the room. Doing something like this is unbelievable. I'm almost embarrassed to say I'm a citizen of the state of Louisiana for doing something like this. So I think that whoever made that decision to remove him, I think you need to rethink that, because we're all human beings and we all have a right to make a statement, even if we disagree with it. But I'm looking at this young man today, and to see even his speech early on, what he said, he's a very intelligent individual. So why would we wanna? And I think it's also important to have somebody in the room that looks like me to be part of the board. So I'm praying, because one of the statements you made earlier in the prayer is, let us do the right thing. So I'm praying that you do the right thing and you rescind that idea about removing him from his position.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan.
Good morning. My name is Maria Harmon. I'm a resident here in Baton Rouge, and I'm proud to say I'm from Lake Charles. And that same pride I hold for my hometown, I know Devontae Lewis does, and you have been serving in this role amicably, like just to the fullest extent of excellence that I believe. You're making the people in our hometown very proud, and you're making the people of this district that you represent very proud. You have executed beyond the expectations of any commissioner that we've seen in a very long time serving on this dais. You have upheld with decorum your behavior, your speech, and everything on this dais to the fullest extent of fidelity and integrity. there's no reason, with that being said, looking at his record and how he has executed his role on this commission, leaves no excuse for him to be sanctioned whatsoever. This is a personal attack.
Yes.
What he used was his own personal platform to express his own personal opinions. He didn't express that opinion through a public service commission outlet on social media. That would be a different situation. Nor did he show up on this dais giving his own personal disdain towards anyone on this dais. But apparently that behavior has happened with other members and nobody was sanctioned there. So what I want to say is, if you're going to take an action like this, let it be for something that is official within that person's role. But this has nothing to do with that. All he did was exercise his First Amendment rights, his constitutional First Amendment right. And all he has done was serve his role with full the extent of excellence and integrity. He has made the people of his hometown proud, and he has made the people of District 3 very proud to continue to support him. And I ask that you recall and rescind this effort, because it makes absolutely no sense. I feel like this is a waste of taxpayers' time, because there are 14 other matters that needs to be tended to. And you can't tell me that Mr. Lewis's role as a leader on this commission hasn't helped to propel his efforts, because it has. And we cannot sanction him for that. He has made too much impact on this state to eliminate his role as vice chair. And quite frankly, it is just insulting in a sense to want to take personal embarrassment to a professional space. We don't carry our personal matters when we go to work. We show up to work and we do the job. So whatever personal matters you may have, handle it outside. Have a man-to-man conversation. But this is not the place to do it. No, it's not. So we stand in support of Mr. Devontae Lewis, and we are very proud of how he has executed his role. We are going to continue to support him as he continues his role as vice chair on this commission, as long as he's remaining elected on this dais. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maria.
Good morning. My name is Edgar Cage. I'm with Together Louisiana. And you know, when I saw this item on the agenda, I had to check my calendar. I thought it was 2025. It seemed like we went back to like 1825. We're going backwards and not forward. For the progress, a little progress that we have made in this state, seems to be people want to chip away at it, to deny a certain segment of the population a voice and representation. That's not going to happen. Now, I know you guys open up with prayer, and I want to ask you about your faith. Is this fair? Is this right? Is this what your God is instructing and telling you to do? Or somebody else influencing you? And let's serve the highest power, not just a higher power, but the highest power. And it just doesn't seem fair or right. And I think this is a David and Goliath moment. And we have justice and fairness in our rock, what we want to use to fight Goliath, who want to turn things back the way they were. We're not going there. We're not going there. And I hope you guys follow your faith, follow your highest power, and follow your conscience and do the right thing. But if you don't, you're going to go down in history on the wrong side of history. I know this, to you it may not mean anything, but to the people of this state, it does. And you wonder why so many of our brightest and best are leaving the state. This is why. It's no secret. If you guys want to help turn the tide, help make things better, have Devontae remain in his position. And just want to let you know, too, he represents everyone in Louisiana. And there are more poor and working poor white people than black people. So they gain too from his efforts and what he bring to this commission and what he bring to the table. So let's make it good for all people in Louisiana, not just those who have the means and those who have the quote, unquote power. You know, because in the end, we're gonna be judged by a higher power. I just want you guys to understand that and to be ready for that, and hope you vote your conscience and vote the right way to retain Devontae as vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Good morning. I'm Carlos Paula Jr., a resident of District 3, and I'm here to express that I strongly disagree with the decision to hold a vote to remove Vice Chairman Lewis from his current position. So I came to join you all on a school morning. I'm a law student to support Commissioner Lewis, and several others are here as well in solidarity. So I would like to ask you all who are here to support Commissioner Lewis to just stand to show your support and to make a record. These are your constituents. So you are tasked to represent the people who elected you. So please listen to your constituents and vote against this motion. I urge you all to not violate Commissioner Lewis' First Amendment right and to vote no.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Soychak, and I live on Ponce de Leon Street in New Orleans. I am a member of 10,000 Women and also the co-chair of Climate Reality Project Greater New Orleans chapter. And I am just wanted to say today that Commissioner Lewis represents hundreds of thousands of ratepayers. And from our perspective, we voted him into office and we want him in a strong position to represent us. And I do agree with what's been said in terms of the free speech issue and, you know, it's really important from a perspective of what's going on with the climate right now in Louisiana. We just had a huge snowstorm, and part of the reason we had a huge snowstorm is because the weather at the Arctic Circle is so unstable that it sends polar vortexes down as far south as Louisiana. And it met with hot air off the Gulf, which is only getting hotter. And it created this crazy snowstorm that people say is only gonna happen once every 100 years, but I'm gonna bet you $5 it's gonna happen again within the next 10 years, because that's what's going on with our climate right now. We voted for Commissioner Lewis because he believes that what is going on can be affected by what we're doing in Louisiana and what he's doing on the Public Service Commission. And we really need his strong voice to be the co-chair. You know, we did not elect in New Orleans, we did not elect Commissioner Skermetta. And Commissioner Skermetta has not supported the MISO transmission, the strengthening of MISO transmission so that Louisiana could get renewable energy from other states, wind energy and solar energy. And I really strongly feel that that's not the right direction to go in terms of these crazy weather events. We need more, you know, we need more solar and wind, and we need to be more connected to MISO. And I just urge you all to please vote against replacing Commissioner Lewis, because it's not going to be good for our situation in terms of climate change here in Louisiana. And not good for ratepayers either. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Liz.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Barbara Shepherd. I'm a member of Step Up Louisiana. We're a grassroots organization that assists people around Louisiana with jobs, school, and we're working on air. But I had to speak up because it seems like we're going backwards. I'm much older than Commissioner Lewis, but I went through the same thing. I was the first black female to do this, the first black female to do that. They killed 2 birds with 1 stone to hire me in state government. And I had a Ku Klux Klan application put on my desk. I had a picture of a tree with monkeys in it put on my desk. And I was discriminated tremendously because even though I had a degree, they told me I couldn't work in the position of a person with a degree. I had to come in as a journeyman, which was a much lower position. But I fought so that I could get up, and I eventually became an engineer. So my say is, don't hold this man accountable for speaking his mind on his own Twitter account. The governor has faults of his own. First of all, he helped take prayer out of school, but then he wanted the 10 Commandments put in school. And I'm like, okay, why the 10 Commandments? But still, we need to look into our hearts. Like everyone has said, we had prayer this morning. So that means everyone here serves some higher power. Look into your hearts and think about what you're doing. Do you want to stand behind someone who appears to maybe be, I'm not going to call him a racist, but a little bit slow on some of his thinking or backwards on his thinking? But or are we going to be men and women of grace and do what God says? And that's do the right thing. And that's all I have to say this morning.
Okay, Ms. Shepherd, thank you. Okay.
If you have a card, please bring it up because we don't have any more cards. If you want to speak, please bring a card up now because we don't have any cards. I think 2 more, Mr. Chairman, that's it.
Good morning. I will say it feels really weird to say these words in their entirety because I've never said a curse word in a public meeting before, but since you guys have set the precedent this morning, I'll continue.
What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Emmy Cormier. I'm a
Amy.
lifelong Baton Rougean. I'm a strong community advocate with no particular affiliation, and I do find myself in getting into good trouble pretty often. The optics of removing a black man from his position because you didn't like the name he called someone else on Twitter during Black History Month, violating his First Amendment right to free speech while you yourself, Mr. Chairman, are guilty of what I would argue worse actions by taunting your colleague with a sign and a stunt with a sign, just a giant sign that said bullshit, is, to use your word, embarrassing. That's embarrassing. This today is an embarrassing waste of taxpayer money. It's an embarrassing waste of my energy, of everybody else's energy. It's silly. It's silly. You should be brushing it off like Governor Landry did when he said through a spokesperson, I guess he doesn't like me, and move on. Mr. Lewis quite rightly and rather succinctly represented my views as my representative. Jeff Landry is an asshole, a big one. So thank you, Mr. Lewis, for letting the world know that. He is also embarrassing, Jeff Landry is, to me. And so is this stunt of yours. Remove this item entirely. Don't dignify it with a vote. It's a waste of time. Don't further embarrass yourself by actually dignifying this stunt with a vote, any of you. Schoolyard bullies abusing their positions of power to pursue personal, petty vendettas is embarrassing. It is wrong, it is a giant waste of time, and it catapults us to a national stage because we are so embarrassing. Read the room. Read the news articles. This is embarrassing. So you have a job to do. You all do. A very serious job that directly impacts my life, your life, and everybody else's in this room. So can we get back to work? Yeah. Thank you.
Sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. How y'all doing today?
Yeah, use the mic, it won't pick you up.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How we doing today?
What's your name?
My name is Kentonio Rosette.
Antonio.
I'm a Louisiana State University graduate, and I'm currently earning my master's degree at Southern University as we speak. And I'm also an Airman First Class United States Air Force Reserve. And I just came to speak on behalf of Devontae Lewis. When I met him personally, I looked at him as a guy. I looked at him as somebody I could look up to, because I've never seen someone with my color in that type of position and holding that type of power. And to say that he's an LGBTQ member also, I find that it's utterly disgusting during Black History Month that y'all bring him up to vote for using his First Amendment right. It makes no sense. Like, I thought that the United States was the land of the free and home of the brave. Am I correct? So are we wanting to stay like an autocracy, or are we gonna run it as a democracy? Just because he said something about the governor, I don't think it puts him on grounds to be put up for removal of his office, of his chair. So many Black people look up to him. As a young man like myself, I tend to follow in his footsteps and become a politician in this great state of Louisiana. But right now, we are not showing ourselves to be a great state. And that's all I've heard to say about this.
You a pilot? Are you a pilot?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whose district do you live in? Do you know, as a state rep? They need to watch out. You coming.
The seats are open.
I think we're good. So if there's no more public comment, and I'm making sure of that, okay. We do have a motion on the floor from Chairman Francis, seconded by Commissioner Kusan, with Commissioner Campbell objecting. So we do need a roll call vote. Commissioner, I didn't know if you were about to speak.
Oh, no, I was waiting for you to finish. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you ready for a roll call?
Mr. Chairman, may I speak before the vote?
What's that?
May I speak before the vote?
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's really unfortunate that we are here. And I have sat here thinking about what I wanted to say, if I should say anything, how should I say anything. But I am thinking of the one person who always told me to say what comes to my heart, and that's my great-grandmother, Viola Roberson, who I had for 22 years of my life. And I am here, I ran for this job to do the work of the people. I show up here every day, I'm ready to talk about the exhibits that me and my staff have worked on for countless amount of times. But it seems this political game became the most importance for us. I've sat up here for over 2 years now, treating each and every one of my colleagues with the utmost respect that I can. But that respect hasn't always been given to me. When I was speaking just a few months ago, rudely interrupted. And when I asked to be respected, I was told not a chance. Mr. Chairman, you sat right there and didn't gavel him down. You didn't tell him to stop. And now you nominated him to be the vice chair of this commission. So if we're going to talk about behavior, we're going to be fair in here today. Because I'm not going to sit here and hold myself to a standard that you won't hold anybody else to. You won't hold yourself to. You won't hold the president to. You won't hold the governor to. Now, you had the chance to talk to me. We had a scheduled meeting on Friday. You canceled it. You came to the Galvez building to meet with the staff. I was in the building. I was right around the conference room. You didn't bother to call me. You didn't bother to text me. You didn't walk across the hall and say, come in here and talk to me. You walked to staff and said, put this on the agenda, and never said another word to me. So I'm not going to apologize for my behavior when others can't do that. I'm not going to hold myself to a different standard. It seems that if you're young, if you're black, if you're outspoken, you got to do whatever the white man tells you to do. And I didn't come here to not use my voice. So whatever actions are taken today, I'm okay with. I'm good. Because I know I stand on a solid rock. All of this is sinking sand to me. So I say that to say, I don't apologize for what I said. I stand 2 feet tall in what I said because I believed it. And I'm going to always say what I believe. If you attack somebody that I love, I'm going to call you out. If you don't defend the poor, I'm going to call you out. If you don't stand up for everybody's rights, I'm going to call you out. And if calling you out means you got to shut me up, well then shut me up. But you will never stop the work or the progress that I'm here to do. And so when this is all done, I'm going to put my glasses back on like y'all know I like to do. And I'm going to talk about the exhibits because I came here to do work. I came here to talk about how we build a strong electric grid that defends everyone. That you can have a warm house in the winter, a cool house in the summer, and a utility bills that do not push them further into poverty. That's what I'm here for. And that's what I'm going to do after this vote. So this political game that we want to take today, that's y'all's prerogative. I'm ready to get back to do the people's work.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this matter? I'll call the vote. Yes means that you will accept the new Vice Chairman, Eric Shemetta. So, Commissioner Campbell, how do you vote?
Wait a minute. This is a vote to expel him, right?
It's a vote to replace Commissioner Lewis with Commissioner Skrmetta as Vice Chairman. It is not expelling Commissioner Lewis from the commission.
Well, of course it is. That's exactly what you're doing. And there's no sense of tap dancing around this. It's exactly what you're doing. We're not in position to elect new officers. You did that the first of the year. So basically what you're doing and you're taking him out and putting Mr. Skrmetta in. That's exactly what you're doing.
That is what is on the motion, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I'm not for that.
Commissioner Campbell would vote no.
Right.
Commissioner Kusan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis, how do you vote? Commissioner Lewis?
Abstain.
Why you do that, man?
Commissioner Skrmetta, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
Ms. Bowman, I'd like to change my vote to no.
So it's a 3-2 vote in support of Commissioner Skrmetta. Congratulations, Commissioner Skrmetta, your Vice Chairman. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda.
Commissioner, did you want to take a quick break?
Yes, I'll tell you, let's take a 5-minute break. People need to go to the restroom. Thank you for that advice. Okay.
Right. When we come back.
All right, round up, let's go back to work.
We just have to manage.
Yeah, no, we don't even have contracts put up. We got somebody that does, we have our own engineers that go double check. Let nature take its course.
If someone sees Commissioner Campbell or Commissioner Lewis, I ask them to step back in.
And we've got a quorum, so we can start.
Yeah, we have a quorum, so we
couple
can
minutes.
get started. But I've seen the other two
There's
right there.
Commission, there they are.
And there they go.
I don't see Catherine, but I can read even though I can't see because Foster stole my glasses.
I think he's,
And I can see okay.
well, you got Colby, you got your CNI assistant.
All right, I'll start. Exhibit 3 is docket T. I'm
Actually,
sorry.
2.
See, I can't even see what item I'm on.
It's T37412.
Thank you.
Are we up?
This is
we up and running?
LPSC
Okay.
versus BT Towing LLC, in re alleged violation of the revised statutes, Title 45, 1177, 1179, in the general order dated November 22nd, 2011, for the failure to submit gross receipts and/or pay to the state proper fees for the years 2021, 2022, and 2023 for the inspection, control, and supervision of its business, service, and rates authorized in Common Carriage Certificate Number 6836-B. Discussion and possible vote pursuant to Rule 57 on an affidavit stipulation executed by the carrier, so we will need 2 votes, and I'm turning it over to Catherine now since she can see better than me.
As a result of a complaint submitted to the transportation staff, a citation was issued to BT Towing on November 1st of 2024 based upon the aforementioned allegations and violations. In response to the citation, the owner of the company executed an affidavit and stipulation admitting to all of the violations. In that affidavit and stipulation, the carrier agreed to the imposition of a $500 fine and $25 citation fee, with $250 of that being suspended, contingent on the following conditions: that the company not violate the Louisiana revised statutes for 3 years from the date of the affidavit and stipulation, that the company pay all outstanding inspection and supervision fees, returns for the years 2021, 2022, 2023 to the Department of Revenue, and provide copies to the transportation staff, that the company pay all outstanding inspection and supervision fees for the years 21, 22, and 23 to the Department of Revenue with copies showing proof of said payments to the commission staff, and that they execute the affidavit and stipulation along with the fines and fees totaling $275. Staff recommends that the commission, 1, exercise its original and primary jurisdiction under Rule 57 to consider the affidavit and stipulation, and 2, accept that affidavit and stipulation executed on January 14th, 2025 for fines and fees totaling $525.
Move to bring the matter up under Rule 57.
Move under Rule 57 by Scametta,
Second.
seconded by Couson. So let's make a motion, we accept it under Rule 57.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Couson. Any discussion or objection? Hearing none, it's in the books.
Exhibit number 3 is docket number T37439. This is the Commission versus CJ's Towing for an alleged violation of the revised statutes 45-161 through 180.1 by operating intrastate without commission authority, allegedly occurring on or about October 11th, 2024. It's a discussion and possible vote pursuant to Rule 57 on the affidavit and stipulation executed by the carrier. So again, this will need 2 votes. As a result of a complaint submitted to transportation staff, a citation was issued to the company on November 18th of 2024 based upon the allegations just mentioned. And in response to that citation, the owner of the company executed an affidavit and stipulation admitting to violations alleged. In the affidavit and stipulation, the carrier agreed to the imposition of a $500 fine and $25 citation fee, with $250 being suspended, contingent on the following conditions: that the company cease operating and offering services as CJ2 Towing until such time as a common carrier certificate is issued to the company, and execute the affidavit and stipulation and return that to transportation staff. Staff recommends that the commission, 1, exercise its original and primary jurisdiction under Rule 57 to consider the affidavit and stipulation, and 2, accept that affidavit and stipulation executed on January 7th, 2025 for fines and fees totaling $525.
Move to bring the matter up under Rule 57.
Rule 57 suggested by Commissioner Scametta,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Couson.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
Scametta moved to recommend staff recommendation on Commission 3, on Exhibit 3 after the 57, and I'll second that. Any objection or discussion? Hearing none, number 3 is in the
Number
book.
5.
Okay, so exhibit number 4 is deferred. Exhibit number 5 is docket number R 37369. This is the Commission's possible amendments to General Order dated April 30th of 1998 regarding electrical reliability standards, including the Commission's current penalty levels and enforcement mechanisms. It's a discussion and possible vote to retain United Professionals Company. Pursuant to the Commission directive at the August B&E, staff opened this rulemaking docket. The directive also authorized staff to seek outside assistance if determined necessary. And based upon that directive, staff solicited UPC to assist with the technical components of the rulemaking, as UPC has knowledge and experience with not only the Commission's general order, but has directly assisted with reviewing the 3 IOU SAFE and SAFE metrics in various capacities. Based on staff solicitation, UPC provided a proposal of $95,000 in fees and $2,500 in expenses for a total budget not to exceed of $97,500. Staff recommends that the Commission retain UPC for $95,000 in fees and $2,500 in expenses for a total budget not to exceed of $97,500.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
A second.
Moved by Commissioner Scametta, seconded by Commissioner Lewis. Is there any discussion or hearing none? R5 passed.
We are on exhibit number 6.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Campbell?
I wasn't here because I was late, and I apologize, because I was 10 minutes late, and I apologize. At the first of all these meetings, we sort of go over about the price of what we're doing. Can you sort of tell me who's high and who's low this time? Can you look at
Sure,
that?
Foster, and I'm doing a report under Exhibit 12, that's gonna kind of go
If,
into rates and general.
with Commissioner Campbell's permission, I'd like to ask if we hold that off till you give the whole report, and that way, I think if people would get a better view of it.
Yeah, and I'm doing a report on Exhibit 12. There was a legislative audit report that talks about rates and where we fit in the country, and I can go into the individual utility
That's
rates.
not what I'm talking about.
You talking about the individual utilities rates?
I'm talking about the individual rates.
I'm gonna need your, my glasses back then.
Okay.
Wait until we get to that. Just tell him we're gonna wait.
I don't know where Brad is, but he owes me some glasses.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing this quiet otherwise.
This was for February of
Mr.
2025.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, please. What exhibit are we on and what are we moving to? I'm trying to follow along in my binder.
Okay.
So this is undocketed. This is the residential bill comparisons thing that we have in your binder.
I understand that, but what exhibit were we on and that we're moving off of?
We're moving to 6.
So we are on 6, but we're not on 6.
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, is that something that we're going to do right now, or would it be more appropriate to put this out of line, more in line with an exhibit that is kind of on the same subject matter?
Well, recognizing Commissioner Campbell's request, I would just ask that he hold off till we get to the exhibit where we'll discuss that.
Just for the record,
Can-
I
wait,
got him
is
to
this
do
mic on?
this. I got him to do this for your information and for everybody to figure out how high the price of natural gas was and the various companies. So if that bothers you, I'll take it off.
No, Commissioner,
But we do it, usually we do it at the first of the meeting. I wasn't here, I was late 5 minutes.
I see what you're saying.
So I just wanted to talk about these rates, because when I first came here, they were 6 and 7 cents. Now we got some approaching 17 cents. And it's a big deal, and I just sort of try to keep in mind where everybody is.
Well, we're gonna take that up in the order that it's on the schedule, and it will be covered if you don't mind just waiting till we get to it.
I don't mind.
right.
I'm sorry I caused a
No,
confusion.
you'll have the floor.
Yeah,
when we
because
get
I've
to
got,
the first one.
I can answer a lot of those questions. We'll go through these, and there's some interesting data out there that kind of
Okay.
shows how we've changed compared to others.
No problem.
Let's get back on track with exhibit 6 now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Exhibit 6 is docket number S 37321. This is 1803 Electric Cooperative and Point Capee Electric Membership Corporation's joint petition for approval of transfer of transmission facility assets by Point Capee Electric to 1803, including operation thereof. It's a discussion and possible vote on a staff report and recommendation. On July 1st of 2024, 1803 and Point Capee filed the joint request for approval of transfer of the transmission facility assets of Point Capee to 1803, including the operation thereof. Notice of the request was published in the Commission's official bulletin, with MISO filing a notice to participate as an interested party. After extensive discovery, staff filed its report on January 24th of 2025, indicating that subject to the affirmative obligation of prudent management by 1803, the transfer of the Poincapie transmission assets is in the best interest of ratepayers and members. Accordingly, staff recommended that the commission issue a letter of non-opposition subject to standard filing conditions, and that 1803 shall confirm that it has already provided the most up-to-date accounting on the costs that it will incur to acquire all assets, including those from Lodgen and from PC Electric. And 1803 shall confirm that the assets to be acquired from either Lodgen or PC Electric will be priced at either a cost of zero or net book value. On February 4th of 2025, the joint applicants filed correspondence indicating that they agreed with and consent to the findings made and conditions proposed in staff's report. And as there are no unresolved issues, staff recommends that the commission accept the staff report and recommendation filed into the record on January 24th, 2025, and that the order be effective immediately.
Move to accept staff report and recommendation.
Second.
And that it also be issued in the proceeding effective immediately.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Tomato, second by Commissioner Lewis. Is that right? Okay, and is there any discussion?
A point of order, Mr. Chairman. Also, I'd like to congratulate Myron Lambert, if you'd like to stand up. Myron, goodbye. Myron has got a new job, moving over to Ascension Parish. Myron, would you like to come up and say goodbye? Because, you know, we'll miss you most of all, Scarecrow. But come on up and say goodbye for a minute.
And in his words to me, I'm moving, but I'm not, but you still got me.
Right.
Well, they finally figured out how to double your pay, Myron, so congratulations.
I hope so, Commissioner. Thank you for this opportunity. Y'all not getting rid of me so fast, and we are a regulated utility that I'll be going to. And I appreciate all of your support. It's been a great experience the last 9 years, and I'd like to thank the board of Poincapie for giving me that opportunity. I'd like to recognize Mr. Craig Magruder, my replacement, who's a longtime employee and a great guy, and I wish him all the best. And most of all, I'd like to thank the employees at Poincapie Electric, because nobody's successful without them. So thank you for your acknowledgement, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So moving on to exhibit number 7, it is docket number U37184. This is Golden Beams Power's petition for jurisdictional determination. It's a discussion and possible vote on a staff recommendation, and this was exhibit 11 last month. On April 23rd of 2024, Golden Beams filed its petition requesting the commission determine that a proposed solar energy project is not a public utility or an electric public utility, as those terms are defined in the Louisiana Constitution or the revised statutes. The proposed project is a solar energy plant that is expected to generate up to 3 megawatts and is to be constructed on property located adjacent to an anticipated data facility in Bastrop, Louisiana. Notice of the petition was published in the Commission's official bulletin, and intervention was timely received by Entergy Louisiana. While the project itself is simple, the transactions are not. The transactions involve multiple parties, most unknown at this time, with various agreements being executed for the various components of the project. Based on information provided by Golden Beams, the project participants will enter into a prime lease with the landowner for access to the property. Golden Beams will then develop and, if necessary, be the investor to any project participant. And upon completion of the project participant owners of the solar facilities will sublease the land and the facilities to the data facility, who will be the operator, generator, and consumer of all electricity generated. Staff reviewed the filing, conducted discovery, and had conversations with both Golden Beams as well as Entergy, and based thereon, staff filed a position statement and recommendation on September 27th of 2024. Therein, staff found and recommended that the commission find that the project, as described in the petition, does not render Golden Beams, any project participant, or Green Tech, the data facility, a public utility or an electric public utility, subject to conditions outlined in staff's recommendation. A majority of those staff's conditions address the unknowns in Golden Beams' petition, some of them which are Golden Beams shall include a provision in the lease agreements that all parties thereto agree to be bound by any commission order issued in this docket. Upon final execution of the various agreements, Golden Beams shall submit copies to commission staff for review and confirmation that the facts stated in the petition have not changed, and no material changes shall be made to the structure of the project, including the sale of any electricity generated, to Entergy or into the wholesale market, or any changes to the leasehold interest in the project or of the identity of the project participants. After staff filed its recommendation, Entergy filed correspondence into the record indicating no objection to staff's recommendation. And staff's condition number 8 required Golden Beams to file final executed copies of each agreement with staff, subject to review. Golden Beams requested to send a list of those parties who executed the final agreement along with a copy of the final agreement, and staff agreed to that, subject to Golden Beams counsel submitting an affidavit authenticating the list as accurate. On December 30th of 2024, Golden Beams filed correspondence indicating it did not object to staff's recommendation, memorializing the conversation between Golden Beams and staff regarding the revision to condition number 8. Staff recommends that the commission accept the staff recommendation filed September 27th of 2024 with a slight modification to condition number 8 regarding copies to be submitted to the commission as outlined in Golden Beams acceptance.
Who's representing Golden Beam?
JP Abear, and he's here.
Okay.
Come on up, Mr. Aber.
Yeah, and JP, you just have to sign the clipboard. You don't have to fill out a yellow card.
You can do that after you finish too.
Yeah.
Just sign the clipboard after you finish.
Oh, Catherine, this is a kind of this is not the normal that we do every day, and plain real simple, what part does the commission play in this predicament here? Okay.
The commission looks at the facts presented by the applicant and determines whether we have jurisdiction or not. And my recommendation, based on the facts presented in their application, is that we do not have jurisdiction over this.
And this is, we have done these in the past. I mean, when I was in Catherine's role, I probably did a half dozen or so. They're typically located in connection with a petrochemical facility or LNG facility where they're going to self-generate power, and it's just to check off the boxes and make sure everyone's in line with our regulations and they're not getting sideways with it. So this is a little bit different than the solar, but it's the same.
So he doesn't even really need to be here, yeah? Okay.
Well, I think he wants to be here to make sure we're not regulating him. Isn't that right, JP?
That is correct.
Okay.
And JP used to practice a lot in front of the commission.
Yeah.
So
I got one question.
Yeah, let Commissioner Scamata first, and then Commissioner Campbell.
So the company, Golden Beams, so who is that? Who makes up the company?
It's a company out of Texas. I think they're located in McKinney, Texas, and they develop data centers. I don't know how many states they have them in. I think they have a few in Texas. And in conjunction with that, they attempt to power those facilities in part by renewable energy and in large part by purchasing power from the local utility.
So what's the source of their capital?
None of our business.
I'm not sure that I know that, Commissioner.
Well, I mean, that's a problem, not knowing the source of capital. And the commission's gonna be looking at some rules up in the next month about making sure we identify this, because I've had meetings in Washington with the Pentagon and identifying that nearly half of the Bitcoin operators in the United States are fronts for the Chinese army. So, I don't really believe that we should be authorizing operators of data centers and Bitcoin operators unless we can identify sources of capitals and not allow them to be integrated into the system.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner, I fully appreciate that, and I'll say this by saying, and it may not change the view, but the principals of this company are persons of Indian descent, and they're American citizens, but they're of Indian descent. I don't know of any Chinese connection. They may, I don't know.
It's about capital sources. It's not about
I understand that.
racial background or anything like that.
And the second issue, and frankly, I didn't know it until the question was posed to me by Ms. Bowman. In terms of Bitcoin operations, they reported back to me that they're going to have some, but they're less than 5%. Most of what they're into is artificial intelligence, and what that is, I'm not intelligent enough to tell you, and data research.
Where's the physical location of this facility going to be?
It's going to be in Bastrop.
And how far is that from, say, Barksdale Air Force Base?
100 miles.
How far is
By
it
the
from
crow
where?
flies?
I would,
Ambassador, from where?
I would guess 70 or 80 miles.
where?
but
Say 100 miles.
Barksdale?
It's,
About 90 miles.
90 miles? That's another problem, because we would not allow these type of facilities to be within 100 miles of a power plant. We shouldn't be allowing them to be within 100 miles of a military installation because of the other reasons associated with Bitcoin operators are essentially decrypting organizations, and they decrypt signals. And that's one of the problems we're facing with Bitcoin operators that are essentially fronts, that they are decrypting signals. So we're going to have some reviews from agencies outside of the commission. And I think one of the rules we're going to try and bring up in the future is having the utilities require federal background checks on sources of capital and also limitations of location before they'll be able to be allowed to be integrated into the grid system for seeking power resources before we'll even allow it.
yes, I appreciate your concerns, Commissioner. I follow the national news, and I'm fully aware that as to this project, it's 3 megawatts, and it's a behind-the-meter project, so it's not even going to connect to the grid.
Well, this is just a kickoff, so there's going to be more coming on this, and it's a serious matter. I have to tell you, I was gobsmacked with finding out the magnitude of the problem. And so I'm going to be meeting with folks in Washington about this next week, and we're going to continue this pathway to try and, continue the protection for our system and for our citizens on this issue. So we're going to figure it out, but at the same time, gave me a whole new appreciation of what these systems do and how they function. But for those folks out there who are bad actors, that we just don't really want them or need them. So thank you very much.
I think Commissioner Campbell had something to ask you about that. This is in Campbell's district, by the way.
Let me ask you a question. Have when you visited with me, you were very nice. You came to my office. I appreciate it. And I asked you, have you visited with the mayor and the city council? Have you been able to do that?
Commissioner, I have not been retained by the client to visit with any local political representatives, so no, I haven't. I was told that my client did have, I guess, a governmental affairs person, not me, that is, working with the local officials, and that the mayor has been notified of the project. And in fact, I found out yesterday that they got, and I realized there's a number of permits they need to get, but they did get an occupational permit from the Bastrop Fire Department for the solar panel part of the project.
It's a little troubling to me that I represent Morehouse Parish, and I represent Bossier Parish, where Barksdale is. So, but I hadn't been contacted by any of those people, and I really just hate to vote for something before they contact me and said, we're fully aware, we're all about it, or we're for it. But it's nothing personal. I feel a little bit left out.
That who hasn't, that the government officials haven't contacted you? I'm sorry.
Anybody. You're the only person that's contacted me. I hadn't heard anything from Morehouse Parish, police, jury, anybody.
Right. Yeah, and one of the issues, Commissioner, is that the legal issues just with the jurisdictional determination, I worked with Ms. Bowman for several months just to get that straight, because if we weren't going to clear the legal issues, then really there was no point in moving anything else forward. And so that was the delay, but that's why, I sought the meeting with you once that I realized that the staff was, going to make a recommendation that the project be approved, but with the conditions that Ms. Bowman produced. So I understand that it seems like it was delayed, and yes, I have to say it was delayed, but that was the reason. And frankly, I've worked on probably 15 of these petitions for jurisdictional determination in the past 20 years or so, and they've always involved, at least at the beginning, a lot of discussion with the staff just to make sure that the basic jurisdictional legal issues can be overcome, and some of them frankly can't, not on this project, but on others. And, you know, we never got to the point that we even approached the commissioners or anybody else because the project was not going forward in the face of staff opposition.
I have a question for Catherine. Commissioner, would you mind? Yes, he's good. There's a recommendation that Golden Beam shall include a provision in the lease agreements that all parties thereto agree to be bound by any commission order issued in this docket. Would that include any future commission orders relative to Commissioner Scometta's issues with the foreign adversary issues and development in the state?
So if what Commissioner Scommetta was discussing does become a commission rule, then we can amend this rule to adopt that, yes.
Okay.
And Commissioners, certainly, you know, on behalf of my client, if something comes up that creates an issue, obviously my client's going to have to address it, and I fully understand that, and I'll make that clear to my client.
Mm-hmm. Well, we may need to kind of read the room a little bit before we take a vote on this issue. There may be a couple of meetings in advance of a vote that might be beneficial to all the parties involved. So from one JP to another. We may look at deferring this, Mr. Chairman, if that's something that,
right.
as I'd like to defer to the commissioner whose district this project is in and kind of give him that option.
Mr. Campbell, the question would be, would you like to defer this till we study it a little further, because it's in your district?
If it's okay, I would like to put it off till next month.
And would that cause any big problem for your client?
I don't believe so, Chairman. And if, you know, obviously you're free to feed me any other, you know, requests for information that you want.
Well, I think that's probably, we could do that. And I got a couple of questions, Catherine, too.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the issues Mr. Scommetta was talking about, 100 miles from our air base and that sort of thing, do we have outside counsel that helps us with it? Would that be considered part of cybersecurity, or is there another area?
We are still figuring out exactly where that would fit, but that is our initial thought is yes, it would make sense to put it within our cybersecurity. Commissioner Scommetta and I just talked about it last week, and so Brandon and Ms. Evans and I have started those conversations. But that's what we're thinking is it makes sense to put it into cybersecurity. Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Evans gonna be in charge of that?
Sounds like she is.
You got the job.
If my boss says so.
Well,
voluntold.
you've always been a great help to me, and this just sounds like a real complicated issue. So let's put it off to next month, and with the help, and you want to come down to Crowley, we got some good gumbo down there.
I understand that, and I apologize because I for various reasons, I didn't get to visit with the other four commissioners. I was able to visit with Commissioner Campbell, so
Okay.
I apologize for that. But I think everybody has my information and the basic documentation. And again, please feed me questions, and I'll ask my client about the issue that you
No
addressed.
problem. And just get with me and Catherine later, and we'll dive deeper into it.
Okay, great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, exhibit number 8.
Yes, sir. So exhibit number 8 is docket number U37423. It's South Coast Gas Company's rate stabilization plan filing for the year ending June 30th of 2024. It's a discussion and possible vote on a joint report and draft order. Yes, thank you. On November 1st of 2024, South Coast filed its rate stabilization plan filing, which was published in the Commission's official bulletin, and no interventions were received. Pursuant to Commission Order Number U36276, South Coast Rate Stabilization Plan allows the company to earn a midpoint return on equity of 10% and requires a resetting of rates in the event that the test period earnings fall outside the prescribed 50-point deadband. In South Coast 2024 filing, the company reported an ROE of negative 13.441%, which would have required a rate increase of approximately $1.5 million. Our South Coast earned ROE fell below the established bandwidth. Staff found that South Coast was authorized in accordance with the provisions of its RSP to adjust its rates to generate the increase in revenue. Staff filed its report and recommendation into the record on January 6, can you go in the other door, please? Staff filed its report and recommendation into the record on January 6, 2025. Upon review, South Coast indicated that the company accepted staff's report and recommendation and filed notice to the effect into the record on January 17th. Thereafter, the parties filed a joint report and draft order into the record. As there are no unresolved issues, staff recommends that the commission accept the joint report filed into the record on February 5th, 2024.
Move to accept the joint report and draft order as attached.
Seconded by Chairman. Motion by Commissioner Scametta, of course. Is there any other opposition to this or discussion?
If you call it, says somebody to object, make a vote. Are you gonna take a vote or not vote?
No, it's if there's no objection, we won't have a vote.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. Hearing no objection, number 8 is passed.
Exhibit number 9 is docket number U37424. This is Pierre Part Natural Gas Company's rate stabilization plan filing for the year ending June 30th of 2024. It's a discussion and possible vote on a joint report and draft order. On November 1st, 2024, Pierre Part filed its rate stabilization plan filing, which was published in the Commission's official bulletin with no interventions received. Pursuant to Commission Order number U3612, Pierre Part's rate stabilization plan allows the company to earn a midpoint return on equity of 10% and requires a resetting of rates in the event that the test period earnings fall outside of the prescribed 50 basis points deadband. In Pierre Part's filing, the company reported an ROE of negative 12.677%, which would have required a rate increase of approximately $168,000. Staff conducted a review of Pierre Part's filing and determined that the company's earned ROE for the test year was negative 13.17, which was still below the established bandwidth and allowed a rate adjustment of approximately $168,000. Staff filed its report and recommendation into the record on January 6th of 2025. Upon review, Pierre Part indicated that it did not object to staff's recommendation, and the parties filed a joint report and draft order into the record on February 5th, 2025. As there are no unresolved issues, staff recommends that the Commission accept the joint report filed into the record on February 5th, 2025.
Move to accept the joint report and draft order as attached.
Moved by Commissioner Scametta, seconded by the chair. Is any objection, any discussion? Hearing none, it's passed.
Exhibit number 10 is docket number U37468. This is Entergy Louisiana's application for recovery and rates of costs related to Hurricane Francine and for other related relief. It's a discussion and possible vote on an interim rate increase pursuant to Rule 57, so this will require 2 votes, and it's at the request of the chair. On September 11th of 2024, Hurricane Francine made landfall as a Category 2 hurricane, causing damage to Entergy's infrastructure throughout southeast Louisiana. On December 30th of 2024, Entergy filed the incident application seeking recovery of approximately $182 million in costs related to Hurricane Francine. Of those costs, approximately $152 million are identified as distribution-related costs, and approximately $29 million are identified as O&M expenses. In its application, Entergy further requested that the Commission authorize interim recovery subject to true-up and refund of the approximate $152 million in distribution capital costs through its rider FRP, which would be outside the cap with the first adjustment beginning in March of 2025. Staff recommends that the Commission exercise its original and primary jurisdiction under Rule 57 to consider the Entergy's request. Staff makes no formal recommendation regarding the actual request itself, but does note that pursuant to applicable law, any interim increase should be subject to refund and the applicable bonding requirements. Should Entergy's request be approved, staff would recommend that Entergy be required to file proof of the applicable bonding requirements with the Commission, be required to file an updated tariff indicating that interim rate rider and its terms with the Utilities Division within 30 days of the order approving the interim. Entergy cannot begin charging the interim until proof of the applicable bond and updated tariff have been provided to and approved by staff. And Commission approval of Entergy's request for interim rate relief shall not be considered final Commission approval related to the recovery mechanism of the Francine distribution capital costs as detailed in the application, and shall not prohibit any party in this proceeding from recommending an alternative recovery for the Francine distribution capital cost.
Move to
Bring the matter up under Rule 57.
57 under
Second.
Minister Scametta and seconded by the chair. And I make the motion that we accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Scametta. And also remind everyone, this is not actually a rate increase as such. This is storm damage recovery, okay? So let's be clear on that. Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I have a representative from Entergy, please, at the table?
Let's ask him about what's going to come off the bill and what's going
Larry Hand with Entergy.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hand. Good to see you. Just a few questions that I have for you on this proposal. As you know, you're asking for an interim recovery of storm damages, and we haven't really done that for you since Hurricane Katrina and Rita. So can you explain why you see justification to supersede a prudence review and put in these rates, or excuse me, put in this recovery at an intermediate basis?
Yes, and for the record, Larry Hand on behalf of Entergy Louisiana, and I want to be open up with saying we are not trying to supersede the prudence review. The conditions that Ms. Bowman read, we fully agree with. The interim relief we are seeking would be subject to the prudence review, so any amounts eventually disallowed by the commission would be refunded to customers, and it's also without prejudice, as she said, to the allocation of the cost and the mechanism for recovery. So, but to your question of why interim relief here, in this particular case, because of the mechanism, we are proposing recovery. As we explained in the application, securitization didn't make sense here. Thankfully, Francine was not as catastrophic of a storm as we saw in 2020 and 2021, which made securitization essential to reduce cost. Applying securitization here would carry very significant fixed cost on the bond issuance, roughly $8 million, and that would eat up the savings on the utility cost of capital versus a bond rate. And what that means here is if we obtain the interim relief we sought in this docket, it will effectively help customers avoid approximately $13 million a year of carrying costs. If we do nothing and we wait until after the prudence review, the carrying costs would accrue and ultimately increase the amount we would seek to recover from customers. So I think this is avoiding carrying costs for customers to the tune of about $13 million a year, depending on how long the prudence review takes. The sooner we start paying for it, the quicker it can get worked off. And again, because of that unique situation, this doesn't apply for all storm cases, but because of the manner in which we are proposing recovery, it does save customers or avoid the carrying cost. And I view it as a no-regret strategy because it also comes with the customer safeguards of it's subject to the full prudence review, which hasn't been done yet, and subject to the other conditions that Ms. Bowman read.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. Can you update on what the residential bill impact would be? I know we've talked about 80 cents per for 1,000 kWh, but can you go down just a few range? I mean, I know most looking around, we're probably somewhere around 1,250 is the average. Do you happen to have that number of what like 1,250 would be?
I can tell you that I had it at one point.
No worries. Well, look, I'll ask another question while you look at it. I mean, I'm very interested in this proposal, and I'm not going to get too much into the application since we are still in the process of collecting data, but I'm curious about if we're going to do this through the DRM, how that plays with the industrial customers and paying some of their share of the cost. Because I mean, I think that's a question that some of my constituents have asked me about. And so under this proposal, since you're putting some of that $150 million in the DRM, what does that do to the cost share for the industrial users?
Yeah, and I guess going back to the bill impact, I did want to reiterate, I think Ms. Bowman may have read it, but the initial bill impact per month would be about 80 cents. That would begin in March if it's approved. I want to also point out that due to a prior settlement that this commission approved, there is a rate refund or a credit that would also start in March, and that's associated with the Grand Gulf divestiture. That would roughly reduce customer bills, a residential 1,000 kWh customer, by 47 cents a month. So when you net the two, if this is approved, the bill change in March would be 33 cents roughly. Your question about allocation, the distribution recovery mechanism is primarily allocated on a functional basis to those customers, whether it's commercial, residential, and some industrials, that take service at the distribution level. So this would not carry the same allocation the commission's traditionally used or most recently has used dealing with securitized storm cost. The DRM does, how I want to be clear, the DRM does have several industrial rate schedules that are allocated some of the cost. It's just not the same level of allocation that we've seen with the prior securitizations. Does that answer your question?
No, thank you. That does answer my question. And as I kind of evaluated this, and we've spent countless time, so I actually want to thank you and Entergy for all the time you've given me in answering me and my staff's questions. I know we specifically have talked about the risk, right? I know you mentioned the roughly some, depending on how we do it, the 13 million carrying cost. But I would like to toy with that a little bit more with you. What are the reasons? Because I think a lot of constituents are saying, wait a minute, if you have to review this, why are you going ahead and giving them the recovery before you actually check prudence? Maybe you see any disallowances. So can you speak to what are the actual risks or why you believe there are risks if we do not approve an interim recovery rather than the 7 to 12 months after the prudence review is completed?
I think the clearest risk is that for customers, and that is the additional $13 million if it takes 12 months. So that is the most direct risk for customers. I think that's what we should probably focus on today. I will say, as the commission, in its order, I think it's U-29-203, following Katrina Rita, the commission outlined a number of factors in that case why it did grant interim relief. And really, it was trying to send a signal to credit analysts and other folks to let them know that the world recognizes we're being exposed to more and more storms, more significant storms, and just providing confidence to the folks that we go to borrow money, whether it's on the debt side or the people we seek equity from to run the business, that when we take their money that they've given us and we use it on storms, this provides, this interim relief is a small way, I think, to provide confidence to those folks that this commission will continue to recognize its responsibilities regarding reimbursement of storm costs. We wish we never had them, but when they come, we know how important it is to get the lights back on for our customers. In theory, we could just restore power with the crews we have on hand, and it could take 3 to 4 weeks. We know that's not acceptable. So when we bring in all these other crews on from off-system around the country, sometimes it does add up the cost. So that's why we're proposing recovered here, but also provide confidence in a future storm event that this commission will support storm cost recovery.
No, thank you, Mr. And I've looked through some of the other applications, especially on that credit risk, and have there been any significant or notices of potential risk of downgrades? I didn't see any of that listed in the application as we've done other applications where credit agencies have listed a warning or listed other items. And so I'm trying to toy with, while I do appreciate that risk, is that risk substantial enough right now? Because I didn't see any of the supporting documents in the application to say that we have gotten any kind of real indication from credit ratings of a potential downgrade, or even of some of that evidence that was submitted in the Hurricane Ida recovery, for example. So I'm just kind of curious, is this more prospective, or are there absolutely some hardcore evidence that's been submitted that you could point to that says the credit agencies are looking at, especially at Hurricane Francine, I shouldn't say Hurricane Francine, but at this moment in time, of potential downgrades? Yeah,
and to be clear, I'm not aware of any reports or anything from the rating agencies that expressed specific risk of credit downgrades relating to the Francine cost recovery. So I hope I didn't confuse any of that. That is not the case. As you pointed out, we did have very significant risk of downgrade following the 2020 and 2021 storms, where collectively we sustained, nearly, I think, $4.7 billion of damage. And that's where we saw the signal from the agencies that there are historic patience for the securitization process, which can take from a storm until we actually get the bonds issued. It can take 20, 24 months. And that's where we saw them express, we're not going to continue to be as patient. Y'all need to continue to look at ways to address this faster. I think this is just a way to do it for a different storm, to show them we can figure things out. I think for future catastrophic storms, we'll probably need to think differently, and we'll be coming to the commission probably into the first quarter with a framework to look at, not for this storm, but for the future. How can we work better together to reduce costs for customers while still maintaining our ability to be resilient following storms?
No, thank you, Mr. Hand, for that question. I think the last question I'll have is, in this application, as you know, you currently are collecting a storm escrow account, a storm recovery escrow account. And I believe in this application, we're pulling only 30 million of the 186 million from the storm escrow. So can you explain what's the company's rationale of not pulling more or the entirety of this 186 million out of the storm escrow, since the storm escrow is sitting around, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say around $255 million. That's just a question that I'm getting, is why won't we pull it all out of the storm escrow, since that's what we collected it for?
Yeah, and it is roughly about $255 million in the current storm escrow account. That was funded following a securitization of Laura Delta Zeta. We replenished, so we drew down the storm reserve for that one. The target storm reserve, when these start, is about $290 million. We had exhausted that following Laura Delta Zeta. When we securitized, we recovered the remaining costs, but also replenished that escrow back to $290 million. We've had a few small storms that have paid for it, but the balance currently is $255 million. When this storm happened, we looked at total storm costs, capital and O&M would be about $180 million. We certainly have the ability, following the process in the order, we have to get concurrence from the executive secretary. We have the ability to draw it all from there, but then that would leave us going into the 2025 storm season with about $70 million in that escrow. And our fear is that that will create a future crisis and emergency if we have a catastrophic storm, to run back to this commission for more significant interim or emergency rate relief. So we can fund, and it's not just fund the storm operations, right? Because we also have other programs that this commission has approved to benefit our customers. We don't want to be put in a position after a future storm, do I get the lights back on, and do I stop working on all the things this commission wants us to do for customers? So we thought it'd be prudent to pull down about $30 million from the escrow. That would leave a balance of about $225 to keep us in a liquid position, following a future storm in 2025.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Hand, for answering all my questions. I want to say, while I do understand Entergy's concerns regarding Hurricane Francine recovery, at this time, I do think this ask is a little premature, but I am opposing this without prejudice. I do think there are questions still that I want to get answered in the pending application, looking at whether the DRM mechanism makes the most sense. But I just wanted to be kind of clear why I am opposing this. I do believe that you should be made whole for prudently incurred storm restoration costs. And I see the logic, of course, of not drawing down the entire storm escrow as we enter another season in a few months. But there are just some other questions that I want to toy with. I mean, I know this DRM mechanism is a 33-year recovery, so I want to look at that. I know in your testimony you cited Hawaiian Electric and their downgrade and their risk liability that we were seeing. I think there are some differences between what we see here in Louisiana and what Hawaii Electric did, but also what Louisiana and Florida is doing. I know there's been some proactive policies that Florida has taken on some broad discretion. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I also want to toy with that. So I just think this is a premature ask, and so I just wanted to clarify that would be the reason of my opposition today. But I look forward during this application process to digging into the application more and getting some more questions answered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Campbell, you want to get in on this?
Yeah, I want to make a motion that we approve this.
Did we already have that?
Yeah, we have a motion.
You do?
We have a motion on the table.
We have an objection? We have one objection, so we're going to vote. Let me ask you something.
Hold up, we're not through discussing it yet, Commissioner. What did you want to discuss it?
Yeah, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
But can you use your microphone, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
These bonds that you're issuing or you're going to issue in the future, what rate of interest do you pay on them?
So to be clear, this...
I understand this, but
okay.
I'm talking about you have some other bonds. If you have storms, you said you have $250 million saved. About what interest rate will you be issuing those bonds?
So the prior bonds that we're currently having the escrow, I think with the one tranche issued at about 4.28%, and the other was right around there, so low fours. I did see a report recently from JP Morgan kind of telling me what other recent securitizations had priced at, and it was a little bit higher.
They're tax-free bonds, aren't they? They should be.
Tax-free?
I'm not sure about that, Commissioner. But the more recent bonds around the country have been coming in higher, depending on the tenor of the bonds, maybe 4.5% to 5%.
Find out, it looks like to me, municipal bonds, it's doing municipal work, should have to be tax-free.
Yeah, the ones we've done in Louisiana, and the secretary of the LRC is over here, can probably explain it better than me.
And that's, yeah, so the statutes that were adopted following Katrina Rita that created the LRC, the Louisiana Utilities Restoration Corporation, is the conduit issuer for bonds. One of the reasons for doing that was to get that tax-free benefit because, and I know in those initial ones, when we went over to the bond commission, there was some confusion and understanding, thinking the state might be on the hook for it. But we explained to them how the structure was set up. Exactly, that the ratepayers are responsible for it. LRC is the conduit issuer. So there were a lot of tax savings associated with those positions at that time. With the most recent storms, the Laura Delta Zeta, Ida, and Winter Storm Uri, there was a change to the securitization law that Energy filed under that new one, and it was my appreciation, and Lane, I'd call him up to jump in and explain if I'm getting confused on that, because I know he's done a lot of the bond work for us in the past, was because of some of the tax positions we were able to achieve through those prior storms, the tax code had changed. So it was a different type of issuance for this one. But to your point, Foster, I think there are still tax savings that will be realized. And you know, we have the LRC meetings. We are still seeing tax benefits flowing back from Katrina Rita on bills. So when you look, if you're an energy customer and you see there's a storm offset, it's because there's still tax benefits flowing back from those storms from way back. And I think that's still the case with this most recent. It's just a different type of structure. That sound right?
Okay, I got a question. Staff, Marks and Pendergrass, raise your hand over there. Marks and Pendergrass. Raise it up high, okay? And Pendergrass, what we got?
Mr. Marks is not in the audience, he's upstairs.
Okay, all right. Now, y'all work with Henderson Ridge on this, did you? I thought Henderson Ridge was working on
Commissioner.
Yes, sir. Henderson Ridge is our outside consultant on it. We have internal audit staff and utility staff also assigned, but the bulk of the work will come from Mr. Barta.
That's why, okay, that's what, just a point I wanted to make.
Yes, sir.
In making a decision, because I'm going to support the staff recommendation. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I got a discussion.
You're on focus on.
Larry, great to see you. The presentation that you just gave, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly, this methodology will save ratepayers $13 million in carrying costs that would otherwise could be, and under the law, would be recoverable after the prudence review.
That's correct.
That's correct?
Yes, sir.
And then there's also a chance that we have some line items that could be deemed not recoverable in the meantime.
That's correct also.
If we postpone this decision today, the 13 million or a pro rata share of that would begin to toll immediately. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'd be just pro rata over, monthly to equal that.
And that would affect all ratepayers across the board, low income and otherwise?
It would.
You mentioned the Grand Gulf divestiture, and I don't think I was here for the meetings that we discussed that issue, and so I don't want to belabor the point, but I would like to at least reiterate that you said it, and I wanted to ensure that it was heard that this Grand Gulf divestiture credit, i.e. reduction, will happen starting March simultaneously with this issue, should we vote on it today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that would be what was the number that you gave, the reduction?
I believe it's about 47 cents a reduction for the Grand Gulf divestiture, and the net of the two amounts would be 33 cents per month for 1,000 kWh customer.
So reductions and cost savings are you're kind of, singing music to my ears. Let's talk about another one. Next year, we're looking at the Laura Delta Zeta rider falling off of bills. Is that correct?
No, the Laura Delta Zeta rider, that securitization bond has a term of about 15 years. I think you're referring to
Yes.
the 2012 Hurricane Isaac.
That's correct. So could you tell in the year 2026 which rider will be falling off of all bills?
It would appear in the bill as FSC 3. That's what will disappear in the bill. It's Finance Storm Charge 3. That was from Hurricane Isaac in 2012.
Okay, and then lastly, I think you alluded to it a little bit. We have the ongoing resiliency docket, and you've stated that y'all are, the company is participating in the resiliency docket robustly. And this methodology, as you look forward, if it works like we are anticipating in the savings that we're looking at, if the resiliency docket meets the increased intensity of the storms, then we could be seeing lower recoveries that are being sought by the utilities. Is that what we're hearing?
That is exactly the intent, and we saw some evidence of that for the recent storms. When you look at Grand Isle, what was largely rebuilt down there following Ida held up extremely well. And so even though that wasn't an official resilience project, it was built to our current wind loading standards and performed extremely well. Same with in that region, a lot of poles replaced after Hurricane Ida. Those two held up very well. So we do believe, and resilience is it's a long-term investment. Florida Power and Light has been at it for 2 decades, and we're just starting, and so we have work to do. But I believe over time we will see a significant reduction in the storm damages that we see following future storms. And also importantly for our customers, I think we will see shorter duration outages following major events, and also fewer customer minutes interrupted. So those are the big benefits of the resilience investment.
And Commissioner, if I can jump in, I'm glad you brought that up, Larry. I was curious, when we did the comparison for Francine, we looked at Isaac because they took similar paths, and Gustav as well. With Gustav, I think we were about $1 billion in recovery. Isaac was between 400 and 500 million, and we're looking at 158. So I think that kind of makes the point that the resilience we've seen is tremendously lowered the cost, even though costs are higher for everything now. So.
Last comment, you mentioned Florida Power and Light. Commissioner Lewis mentioned the state of Florida. The state of Florida has a much higher denominator than us on a lot of issues, so sometimes it's not comparing oranges to oranges for Florida's sake. But the question I have is, sometimes Florida, they recover their losses in a much quicker time period. And if we tried to do that around here, I think that we'd have pitchforks through the door. And can you give me one example of a storm rider, so to speak, that Florida used to recover over a quicker time period than I think is feasible for the people of Louisiana?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. To put it in a context, again, not oranges to oranges or apples to apples, but for 2024, the 3 largest utilities in Florida, Florida Power and Light, Tampa Electric, and Duke Energy Progress, they saw multiple storms in 2024, totaling in aggregate about $2.2 billion or so of damages. Their commission recently approved for FP&L might have been approved in December. Duke and TECO were approved in January. Very significant storm charges. The top of the heap is Duke Energy Progress is recovering $32 a month from their customers starting March 1st. Tampa Electric is recovering $20 a month. And lastly, Florida Power and Light is recovering, I believe, $12.02. To be fair, because of that higher denominator of customers and sales, they're able to do that over 12 months. That's their policy issue, but that policy has a price tag, clearly, and I don't believe that's affordable or workable for our customers in Louisiana.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I think you enlightened me a great deal.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Well, I know that we got a no vote from.
Yeah, we had a motion from the chair, a
Okay.
second from Commissioner Scrametta, opposition from Commissioner Lewis.
Is there any other opposition?
So we just need a roll call vote.
Okay, let me go ahead with a roll call vote. Commissioner Campbell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis, you vote no.
No.
And Commissioner Toussaint?
Yes.
Commissioner Scamato?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so it's a 4-1 vote. It approves it, so thank you, Larry.
Thank you, sir. Exhibit number 11 is docket number R36131. This is the Commission's determination of Commission jurisdiction over the various methods of providing electricity to electric vehicles and the infrastructure associated therewith. It's a discussion and possible vote on staff's final recommendation on remand. Pursuant to a directive issued at the Commission's July 2021 B&E, staff opened this rulemaking to determine the Commission's jurisdiction over electric vehicle charging stations. Interventions were received by several parties. On July 26 of 2024, staff issued its final Phase 2 recommendation, which was accepted by the Commission at its August 24 B&E and was memorialized in General Order dated September 10, 2024, corrected. On September 20th of 2024, Entergy, Clico Power, and SWEPCO filed a joint motion for clarification or reconsideration of that General Order. And in their motion, the IOUs noted several concerns, particularly with Section 601 as it relates to being broad to prohibit all ownership of EV charging stations from electric utilities, and that the Section 801 is inconsistent with the definition of EV charging stations, missing important guidance, and appears incomplete. At the October 2024 Business and Executive Session, the Commission granted that motion, thereby remaining and reopening the docket to review and possibly clarify Section 601 and 801 of the General Order. On December 27th of 2024, staff filed its proposed recommendation on remand and request for comments. Responsive comments were received from several stakeholders. After reviewing those comments, on February 7th, 2025, staff filed its final recommendation on remand. The final recommendation included clarifications as well as an amendment to remove an unnecessary provision from the definition of electric vehicle charging station, clarification to 601, and a clarification to 801. And staff recommends that the Commission adopt the final recommendation on remand filed on February 7th of 2025. And after filing that, I believe the chair has a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Would you read my motion,
Yes,
please?
sir. The chair's motion is, I move that we approve staff's recommendation with the following amendment. It would be to delete the second sentence of the proposed new Section 801, the specific words, the net metering rules. And that is the motion.
Okay, is there, we need a second on that?
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Lewis. Is there any objection or discussion? Hearing none, it's in the books. 13.
Exhibit number 12 is reports, resolutions, discussions. We have 2 reports this month. And then a few ratifications. So we'll start first with the report from staff regarding Louisiana's electric profile. It was a report from the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, and this is going to be given by Secretary Fry, and it'll also cover what Foster requested earlier.
Good morning, Commissioners. So, yeah, I think I talked to a number of y'all about this, but we received a lot of questions, and there was a lot of media coverage about a document that was issued January 15th of this year by the legislative auditor that was titled Louisiana's Electric Profile. And some of the headlines suggested it was an audit of the commission. I think some of the headlines misinterpreted what the report itself said. So I wanted to point out some of the things in the report. There's a lot of really good things about the commission said in the report. But starting first, it's an informational report of the legislative auditor, not an audit. And why is that important? Well, the commission is audited by the legislative auditor on a fiscal basis, essentially every year, every other year. And the legislative auditor also performs what they call a performance audit, looking at how the commission's doing its job. So we had one of those last year that dealt with our review of the broadband dollars through the RDOF program. Catherine and I worked very closely with the audit staff. They had some recommendations for us. We accepted those recommendations. That's the typical way an audit works. We work directly with them. As we were finishing up that audit, they said, look, by the way, we're going to do an informational report about the electric profile. Can you point us to some big dockets at the commission? So it wasn't an audit. We pointed them in the right direction where to look. Saying that it was auditing the commissions and there were findings is not accurate, and I just wanted to clear that up. Much of the data that was used by the auditor in compiling this report comes from the EIA, the U.S. Energy Information Administration, and I've talked about this in the past. It is a fantastic source of information on anything you can imagine. It's EIA.gov, so I encourage people to go on there and play around, and I spent a lot of time on there and came up with some interesting information. So specifically what was in the report that got a lot of the attention was it said and this is not a surprise, we've heard this before, that Louisiana has one of the highest per capita electric consumption rates. We use a lot of electricity. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, we have a large industrial load. We're one of the few states that the industrial load comprises the bulk of the actual electricity consumed. And also, and this is a point that the legislative auditor pointed out that can't be lost, that 7 out of 10 Louisiana households rely on electric heating as well. That's not the norm in the country. And you're going to see how that plays out here with these numbers I'm going to provide you. On average, the Louisiana residential customer uses about 46% more electricity than the average American. Again, that's based on the fact that we're using electricity for both heating and cooling. But as we said before, our rates are typically among the lowest in the country. And I know Commissioner Campbell's made the point that these rates keep going up, and that is absolutely the case, but we're still consistently in that top 3 or 4. The most recent data was from December, I believe, November or December. Louisiana was 4th behind Idaho, Utah, and South Dakota this month. New Mexico was actually a little bit higher. A lot of states use a lot of coal. It is what it is on that. Even with some of the highest usage, because the rates are typically low, our average electric bill was 16th. That was in the legislative auditor's report, 16th in the country, so 16th from the top, not insignificant. But this is what I thought was very interesting in the report that didn't really get much coverage. In the country, electric rates between 2010 and 2023, that was the time frame they looked at, have increased 38.6%, almost a 40% increase in electric rates in the country. Louisiana rates have increased 28.6%. So we're increasing at a much lower level than they are in the country. And another interesting fact, and this was on both the national level and the state level, and I think this has a lot to do with energy efficiency efforts, both at the state and local level. Even though rates, that kilowatt hour charge, are increasing 38 and 28%, the average bill has increased 23.8% in the country and 15.3% in Louisiana. So you're seeing a very large increase in the kilowatt hour charge with a much smaller increase over 13 years in the actual total bill. But there was a point in there that I don't want to be lost, and that's about the heating component of this. What would happen if you added heating costs to the total utility bill when you're not using electricity for heat? So in the country, we use essentially 4 sources for heat, and I'm not going to use wood. That's actually, firewood would be another one. I don't think there's any way for EIA to capture that information. But the main sources would be electric heat, natural gas, propane, or fuel oil. The EIA does track fuel oil, natural gas, and propane. So using that same EIA website that was cited heavily in the audit, there's something called the Residential Energy Consumption Survey Dashboard, or REX. I printed out some of the pages the best way I could because I'm not very good with spreadsheets, but I'll show y'all what it looks like. And you can get this for any state. So what it does is it breaks it down into these categories. The total number of housing units, so you can do that by the nation as well as the state, the average square foot per house, the total site consumption per household in MMBTUs, million British thermal units, so that's going to factor in both gas and electricity. The percentage of the households that use natural gas as main space heating fuel, the percent that are all electric, and the percent of the households that have air conditioning equipment. So looking at those factors, and I'm going to focus on the last 3. And also, the total site expenditures per household. So for the most recent data on this dashboard, the average household in the U.S. for their utility bill would have been $1,884 for the year. That average household has 51% of the households use natural gas as space heating fuel, 25% are all electric, and 89% have air conditioning. That would come out to $157 a month on average. So this is an all-in bill. This is your electric bill as well as your heating bill, whether that be gas, fuel oil, propane. For Louisiana, and again, we were 16th in electric consumption, but when you add in the heating costs as well, our annual expenditures would be $1,704. That comes out to $142 a month. Now, comparing that to the other states where 51% of the average household uses natural gas, For heating, only 33% of Louisiana uses natural gas. Whereas 25% of the households in the country are all electric, 43 are in Louisiana. And whereas 89% have air conditioning, surprisingly, it's only 93% in Louisiana. I'm not sure how you could make it without air conditioning in Louisiana. So we're using a lot more air conditioning, obviously, and heat as well. So where does that number fall in? That puts us 38th. So we have the 38th lowest bills when you add in the heating costs. So we go from 16th if you just capture electricity, but when you add in the heating and make it apples to apples with everyone, we drop all the way down to 38th. I pulled the highest and the lowest just for comparison. Not surprisingly, Alaska is the highest. The average annual bill would be $3,000. That's only 7% have air conditioner, but 57% use natural gas. And I found this interesting, but Colorado was actually the lowest, which is somewhat surprising, but there was a number that jumped out on that, and it's 76% of the homes in Colorado use natural gas as heating fuel, and only 10% are all electric. So moving on from that, and I said those numbers, the average numbers annually. There were also findings on reliability, which is, I know, something we've talked about quite a bit. Commissioner Lewis has a docket open right now to look at ways we can get more granular looks at reliability. SAIDI and SAFE were specifically pointed out. They broke it down into the southern region and looked at that area only, which probably makes sense because we're dealing with similar weather events, similar types of vegetation. So on SAFE, which is the frequency of outages, we had the third highest frequency of outages in the southern region. Mississippi and Tennessee are higher. For the data used, the average outage is 1 per year per customer. Louisiana is 1.6. What I thought was interesting is only one southern state was below that national average, and we've talked about them already. It's Florida. So as we're moving to more reliability, more resiliency, and we're looking towards Florida, it's bearing out in the SAFE numbers. And it's the same thing with the SAIDI, which is the duration of outages. Mississippi and Arkansas are higher than us. The average is 2 hours per year. Louisiana is 3.3. And again, the only southern state that is below the national average in outages is Florida. One thing the legislative auditor did point out is the commission is addressing a lot of these issues that we're seeing nationally through resilience, pole viability, enhanced metrics to measure reliability. So they did a good job of looking at all the things we're working at right now. They pointed out that we've taken actions to help consumers reduce electricity consumption, both through our residential energy efficiency program as well as the customer-centered options on the industrial side to lower that industrial usage. They've also talked about the Commission's recent efforts to diversify energy sources of generation and also to evaluate the state's electric infrastructure. And one thing that was interesting, and when I finish up with this, and then I'm going to go to the current rates where we are now per utility, I don't think this is a surprise to any of you up there that you are the lowest paid commissioners in the country, and it's not even close.
Oh, no.
Currently, the commissioner's salary is $45,000 with a vehicle allowance on that. That puts it somewhere in the $53,000 salary range. There was a bill that we worked on back in 2008 to increase that to $75,000 annually. It was actually passed by the legislature, but vetoed by the governor. There hasn't been a bill introduced since then.
Who was the governor then?
That would have been Governor Jindal.
Come on, speak up.
It's Governor Jindal. And if I remember right, I think the legislature may have amended that bill to put them a rate increase for themselves as well. It seems that Colby's saying no, so maybe I'm misremembering that. They did point out our neighboring states, though.
You need to point out too, excuse me, you need to point out that we meet once a month. And everybody else, usually like Mississippi, my friends over there, they go to work every day. It's a little bit different. And I'm not saying we don't work, but if you're a public service commissioner in Mississippi, you have a job, you go to the office, you work every day. You don't work with the staff doing all of it. It's different. That's why we're having a hard time getting a pay raise.
Completely agree with that, Commissioner Campbell, and that is pointed out that we are part-time as opposed to other states that are full-time. Now I know part-time is a term of art, but in Texas, for example, the average salary is $225,000. Alabama's $99,000 to $107,000, and Mississippi's $95,000. So they're about all double, triple, or 4 times higher. 4 times, there you go, in Texas. And some of those, they've looked at that as well. And we've done studies before looking at other states. And they also talked about the budget and staffing challenges that put a burden on the commission to do its job. So, yes, we obviously would like reliability to be better. We would like usage to go down. But while that was focused on, there's a lot of good things highlighting what the commission has done to address all of these issues throughout it. And I thank the auditors for the report they put out. I know they put a lot of effort into it. We worked well with them on the audit, and they ran this by us to make sure there weren't any glaring errors in it, which we didn't see any glaring errors. I think there was 1 or 2 things we pointed out that they corrected. To Commissioner Campbell's question from earlier, we are a little bit ahead of EIA. Donnie puts these together based on the filings we get from the utilities. So in February, and we do typically see a little bit higher rates in February because of the fuel component, the average cost per kilowatt hour was 12.9 cents. And I'm going to look to the list, Foster, to see who's the highest and the lowest. It looks like Panola Harrison is 8.7. It's a big jump from there. They're under an old legacy contract. I think, if I'm looking right, the next lowest would be Northeast at 11.4, Demco at 11.9, and the highest looks like it's Point Capee at 15.9. The others all in the 12 and 13 range.
Just for the record about pay raises, I voted for a pay raise 200 years ago for the Public Service Commission. And we were making $24,000 a year. That's what we were making. And I never will forget, they wore the Capitol out, the Senate out to get it up to 45. And so I voted for the 45, and I'm glad I did, but I mean, it was 24,000 up to about 15 years ago.
And I think it might have been further than that. I think it might have been in the late 80s, early 90s, that last increase.
Yeah. And people spend millions of dollars to get elected. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And you get paid $24,000 or $50,000 a day. But, we don't work every day like other people do, or we don't have to, put it that way.
Well, my turn.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I ran a business and I understand hiring and firing and turnover. And if you look at your turnover and it's people y'all have through, there's a revolving door, and it's because of pay. It's a pay scale. I think Taylor Barra knows business, I think we need to bring that up and ask him, he was a banker. If I went to borrow some money from him, and he just looked at the turnover I was having in my company, he'd say, man, I ain't gonna loan you any money, you're gonna go out of business, and I know it's strange, y'all, is your help, and I'd like to see every one of the staff get a serious raise, really. Thank y'all for what y'all do, and as far as I'm concerned, you're all underpaid, all right? So,
Don't let Johnny hear that. No, I know he's watching, but no, to that point, Commissioner, there was a fundamental change that occurred about 4 years ago that I think is helping us moving forward, and that was the legislature redefining our inspection and supervision fees, which is, and the other fees as well that make up our funding, is not statutory dedications. This was then Representative Edmonds, now Senator Edmonds' bill, as fees for service. And that classification was very important, dealing with the sweep issues we had dealt with in the past and the uncertainty of budgeting associated with that, recognizing the fact that we're not taking any dollars from the general fund. It's the people we regulate who pay into those funds. So that was important, and I think that's helped with some stability. There's also been a lot of efforts on the state level for different classes of employees to increase those pay levels. So hopefully we're going to see some relief there in the future.
I wish there was some way we could compare our state to other states. You have some appointed commissioners, some elected. We're elected here. And I think we have very good rates compared to the rest of America. And I think the people that work here, you all folks have deserved a lot of credit for that, for helping us. you assist us at every one of these meetings with recommendations from the staff and all, and we work hard. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents worth. Okay, Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Brandon, for such a thorough kind of report from this report. I mean, at first, I want to thank the auditors for providing this data. I think they put a lot of hard work. I know you and the staff put in some hard work for them, and this data, I think, showcases some of the work that you talked about we should be doing and what we need to be doing. I mean, I think one place where this report shows is that we need to be doing some better IRP modeling. That needs to include the best outcomes for all parties. I mean, I think transmission expansion, grid reliability, safe and reliable energy should be at the forefront of everyone's minds. I think as a commission, we need to take some of these data points seriously. I mean, I think we need to look at rules that are looking at more low-cost energy renewables, more demand response, more energy efficiency, better interconnections across the grid, and afford rates. I mean, I thank you for, I was going to ask you a question, but Chairman Francis got to it about the increase in turnover and if there is work that we need to do looking at those fees to potentially even raise more revenue. Because, I mean, I think as we enter a new era, the demand is coming, right? I mean, if we're talking either about demand growth, we're talking about technology advancements, we're talking about the speed that we need to look at some items, I believe we need the support and the help to be able to look at that and do so. So I would love to talk with you more about that and how we can go. I mean, I think one place where I just want to really highlight where I think some of the work has to be done here in Louisiana was when we looked at, and you touched on it, when we looked at the average monthly residential electric bill and how it was originally 16th in the highest. I thank you for adding that different context. But I mean, I think a place that we have to start doing some work that I've talked about is we're traditionally around 5% late penalties for utility customers. It's one of the highest in the nation. We are seeing that with the expansion of AMI, late fees just seem to be a poor tax, if we're going to be honest about it. And so I think we need to really look at that. I think we need to look at customer notifications, customer protections. And so I just wanted to highlight this report as a guiding post for the work that we're here to do, and looking at some of those topics. And so some of the things that I'm not going to pull the utilities up here, but I want them to start thinking about utilizing this report is I want to see how you're identifying vulnerabilities in the grid that leads to the reliability issues for major events, and what about outages for fair weather days? I know we are still working on my pending docket to update the safety SAIDI rules and look at some distribution level data, but that is one of the biggest concerns that I hear quite often. I think secondly, we need to really take another examination at what hedging methods we are using to ensure that natural gas price fluctuations are not making customers overexposed to these price shocks. I mean, I think as we see the increase of AI, data centers, load growth, that gas hedging is going to become a major tenet of how we keep affordability. And then also, I think with freezes and proposals that are coming potentially from the budget negotiations in Congress, how are we strategizing to planning for possible tariffs and changes in tax credits? I know we have been doing significant amount of work from what the IRA presented. I applaud a lot of the utilities who are aggressive in going after some of those federal dollars. I particularly want to thank Entergy for applying for multiple GRIP applications. I know we did not receive one, but I know that work was done, and I want to applaud you for that. But I also want us to all think about if we are losing some of those federal dollars that could have been able to make our grid more reliable and more resilient, what other ways are we doing it to protect customers? And so those are just some of the things that I took from this report. And the last thing I want to do is thank our staff. I mean, when we look at the pending rule dockets that the auditors listed, the pending applications that the utilities are doing, this is a significant amount of work. As we've identified, we're one of the lowest paid commissioners, from my research, one of the lowest staffed commissions in the country, which makes this work extremely difficult for us to do the people's business of Louisiana. And I'm hopeful that this report helps us with our friends in the legislature, and maybe we can pull Commissioner Couson, since he's fresh from there to help them make some changes for us to ensure that our agency can move correctly to meet the needs of the people. But I just wanted to put some of those comments on the record from this report and thank the auditors for bringing awareness to some of this data and information.
Mr. Kershaw.
One follow-up, Chairman Lewis mentioned late fees, and I think there were some votes taken last year. Obviously, I wasn't part of the commission. As part of a large negotiation that I read about, there was a reduction in late fees for one of the utilities who was here on a rate case, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
So I just ask if you could comment on that, just remind me what happened.
That was, if I remember, that was part of the energy FRP extension. There was some reduction in rate fees there.
And was that reduction included in this audit that they referenced?
I think,
I don't, Commissioner Kuznets,
I have to look back
I don't
and
think
see.
it was.
I don't think so,
it was
'cause we
either.
So I just want to commend the commission for the hard work that they've done to lower the late penalties, including Commissioner Lewis, and to protect all of our ratepayers relative to those late fees.
I think the one thing, and I said it and I want to highlight it again to your point there, in the commission's work in the past, is the most telling thing was the increase both on the bills and the electric rate throughout the country. I mean, it's going up everywhere, but we're not going up at that same level. And in fact, on the chart, you saw increases on a yearly basis, whereas we had a significant drop last year in rates. So we're bucking the trend there. Everything's more expensive, we know that, but we are not increasing at the same level as other states or the country as a whole.
And is it true what the numbers you gave, if we increase our gas a little bit, that looks like it might result in a net savings.
It could, and look, I am not an engineer, but I have heard from people who design those systems that one of the large, and look, I always use this example, anyone who tailgates, that runs a generator, not that I've done that, but if you hook up a fan or something to that, and obviously a fan doesn't have a compressor or a TV, it pulls very little juice, but hook a coffee pot to a generator, just a coffee pot that has a heating element, and see how much strain it puts on that generator for just a small coffee pot. And it's, as I appreciated it, electric heating strips are not dissimilar, and particularly if they're older, they're going to be less efficient. So they use a tremendous amount of electricity.
So we had a gas stove and a pot of boiling water where it saves some money.
Those don't use as much, and actually on that dashboard, you can actually look at hot water as well. It's a fascinating. I mean, I seriously encourage people to look at that website. There's so much information. It's hard to sift through it sometimes, but on that chart, I could have broken that down and saw how much the average customer in each state pays on hot water heating. I mean, you can break it down that granular.
Yeah, I think you may have a move and go back to drip pots, Well, I'm serious. I'm pro-gas. I'm not ashamed to say that. So let's get out there and put some more gas lines in. We're putting in a bunch of transmission lines. Put in some more gas lines. Get some more gas moving. We've got to help our ratepayers. Okay, next one. Okay.
So still under exhibit number 12, we do have an update regarding how the grid performed during the recent Gulf Coast blizzard of 2025. And Chair, you asked for just a brief report and summary for the 3 IOUs and the 2 LDCs. So I guess I'd ask the 3 IOUs to come up first. Just introduce yourself first, please.
I'm happy to go first. Larry Hand again on behalf of Entergy Louisiana. And I'll give my report. As you all know, we do have an LDC operation in the Baton Rouge area currently, which is subject to a transaction with Delta Utilities. So I'll report on that at first and then cover the electric grid. With regard to the gas system in Baton Rouge, we didn't experience any significant issues during the snowstorm. We had recently completed a lot of projects that allowed us to more closely monitor the system and, monitor and take actions as needed. Following the storm, even though we didn't have issues, we've been kind of following up to harden parts of it with different equipment. So to avoid any potential issues, hopefully the weather is getting colder tonight. I don't think we'll experience the same thing. So the gas system performed very well. I know for summer storms, there's sometimes a concern that too many generators kicking on will draw down the system. And that kind of goes into the electric side of the house for Entergy Louisiana. During that winter event, we had peak outages across the state. Relative to our 1.1 million customers, we had 6,500 customers out at peak, and that peak occurred on Wednesday. That's January 22nd at 8:45. The following day at 7 p.m., we had restored all the customers except for about 100, so largely knocked them out pretty quick. And thankfully, I think for all of us, the weather we experienced was a very light, dry snow, and it was windy. It blew it off of the conductors and so forth, so I think we're fortunate. Regarding our generation fleet, Entergy's generation portfolio is about 12,000 megawatts of capacity. It performed very well during this event. As y'all recall, following Winter Storm Uri, this commission opened a docket to make sure utilities that own generation took steps to make sure it was winterized to kind of correct any flaws we had in terms of the winterization. We frankly don't experience most of the plants, gas plants and coal plants in Louisiana are denied to let more air in to cool it off. But when you have the cold weather, we learned we need to protect wind blocks, things like that. So we spent, following Winter Storm Uri and the years following, we spent significant amount of money to harden those points. And as a result of that, we experienced winter temps at those generators even below what we saw in Uri and didn't see what I would call freeze-related outage during the event. So at all times during the event, Entergy had online and or available to MISOTA dispatch more generation than we had load on our system. So I think we're pretty pleased with the results. Of course, nothing is ever perfect, and so we're going back through looking for lessons learned, if there are any, and to make it better for next time. So that's my report, pending any questions.
Thank you.
Mark Kleehammer on behalf of CLECO. I will echo most of the things that Larry mentioned. You know, every storm's different. You prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and in this case, I think we had the best. He mentioned the type of snowfall. Snow is not nearly as damaging as sleet or freezing rain is to utility assets and the vegetation around it. So we fared fairly well, even though we had 8 inches of snow in the Slidell, St. Tammany region, which is the most in 130 years. We had a peak of about 893 customers affected. I will say that on average, our customers were restored within 2 hours. That is a very, very different story than what we had in Uri years ago. A lot of that has to do with generation. We were in the same boat where we had excess generation in 5 of the 6 days of the storm. The first one was the first day when we were ramping up a little bit. Part of that is due to committing Madison 3 in advance for reliability purposes. It is also due to a lack of gas interruptions that we all saw during Uri, and better performance because we spent, as did Entergy, CLECO spent about $6 million on winterization since the 21 storms, which is installing heat tracing devices and improving insulation on piping, installing power blankets, upgrading the windbreaks that he's mentioned, and generally replacing and upgrading existing freeze protection equipment. Regarding the costs, if you recall in Uri, we had significant pricing issues. LMPs were very high, generation was at a premium, gas prices were very high. We did have gas prices spike. They averaged about $10 over those few days. However, I think we've mitigated the effect that customers will see through our fuel adjustment clause, partially by dedicating Madison 3, which is a solid fuel unit, partially through hedges, partially through the use of gas storage. In 2021, CLECO came to the commission and asked to defer some of the costs for fuel because we had a calculated fuel adjustment clause of $84. At this point, our estimate for next month is probably $42, exactly 1/2 of that. So again, very, very good performance by all of the units. I'd like to thank everybody who works on the company, the frontline workers who are out there restoring power, who did a great job, and the folks who are keeping the plants on, which is very beneficial to customers. Going back a little bit, in our rate case, we did modify the late fees. So that's a big deal that CLECO took on last year. And when you balance reliability and cost, I will just say we are very, very focused on value for our customers. We take reliability extraordinarily seriously. CLECO is the only utility in this state to have met or exceeded the SAIDI and SAFE goals for all 25 years since inception. And in 2024, we exceeded both SAIDI and SAFE by about 20-25%. And that's a little bit of an uptick from the prior year, better than the prior year when we were dealing with some of the proactive measures to deal with wildfires. So I'm very proud of the performance, and again, it's easy to give a report when things went well, but they really did go well this year.
Hello, Brian Blanton on behalf of SWEPCO. So, echoing the same comments about the weather, we're very fortunate with the storm that came through. So SWEPCO experienced a total of 36,000 out, but in Louisiana it was just 9,500. With 8,800 of those customers in Shreveport District, and then 750 in the Valley District. So the rest was in Texarkana, Arkansas, Texarkana, Texas, and it was all vegetation related. All the power was restored in Louisiana within 8 hours, and then in Arkansas it was 48 hours. SWEPCO generation fleet, no operational issues at all. Everything performed well, and we had all of our base contract crews, veg crews, and mutual assistance crews on property.
I'll tell you, we need to get out there and blow our horn. Nobody else is gonna do it. You need to get some folks to go to these Kiwanis Club, Rotary Club, all these others, and share a lot of this information out there. We need to get it out to Commissioner Kutzall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
First, I want to commend each of you and your companies. I want to commend many of the utilities who aren't represented here at the table, from the co-ops to the small water utilities to other gas companies. And I'm not going to reiterate what you've already said were the successes, but from my perspective, I want to commend you on the communication that me and my staff received and the PSC staff received, because it helps from an emergency response standpoint. And that's critical. It's kind of funny. My first storm as a PSC member is a blizzard. So I'll always remember that. And so it provided some unique challenges as far as accessibility, to get to the lines, the poles, and to get to the transformers and the breakers that were out. Fortunately, those were the types of problems we were dealing with. But the communication that you gave me was able to leverage, again, our communication with DOTD and with other local municipalities about how we're going to get to those different locations. What bridges do we need to open first? Where do we need to send the tractors and the plows to get the roads cleared first, so that we can get our constituents back up and running as quickly as we can. So I just want to commend you on the communication moving forward. I think, I want to definitely improve and look at how we can improve our communication, which I think is already there from the PSC staff with GOSEP and also with other local emergency response teams. Lafayette, we're kind of fortunate to have our own Office of Emergency Preparedness in Lafayette. Many of you know that because you communicate with them. But Lafayette was also grateful that I was able to provide them with information from utilities that don't report to the city of Lafayette, but right outside of Lafayette. And I was able to give them that information because, as you know, Lafayette provides a lot of services to surrounding communities and parishes as well. So with that, I just want to say thank you to each of you. And again, thank you to your staffs that did all the heavy lifting on the ground during this storm.
Mr. Scametta.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add. When we were communicating, and I believe this was an Entergy issue, the grid itself actually performed well, like you said, because it was more of a powder event versus ice. But we also found that the outages that we did experience, several of them were from vehicles going off the road and actually taking out power poles and knocking poles down, and then, which was not related to just vegetation issues. We had problems with poles being knocked down and wires coming down. But commend you on very quickly getting those poles back up. But when those poles come down, a lot of people go out without power. That it's not relevant to the grid failing in itself. It was an outside impact of a vehicle collisions. So thank you very much for the crews that were able to get out there very quickly, get a new pole up very quickly, and replace the wires. And I just wanted to tell you, and repeat the other commendations on this. But everybody did a really good job on this, and thank goodness it was the kind of storm it was. Otherwise, I think if this had been a combination of ice and snow, we've had a much different result on this kind of discussion. Thank you.
Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to thank also all the utilities for responding promptly and quickly to this extreme weather event. I want to say the communication, at least over the tenure, has gotten significantly amazing for us to be able to respond. And then also when we're able, vice versa, when the communication comes to us, the timeliness. I'm really curious because I know we've started to have some conversations about this around vegetation. I know this is going to be a topic for the commission in the upcoming months. And so I know that it may not pertain to this storm, but if it does, I would just be kind of curious on what was the divide between those outages that we would count more just from the weather event versus those that would have some type of vegetation management issues. And so I'm not going to ask you for that today, but if you can look through that, or if you have comments from the data that you saw, I'd be interested in that. So I'll stop there before I ask something else.
Commissioner, it won't be scientific, but certainly to your point, the vegetation was an issue because even with the lighter snow, it does weigh down branches. So if you have branches overhanging, it gets in two spans of conductors and you have an outage. So vegetation was a big cause of the outage. We also saw just with the, for ELL, we set a new winter peak load of 9,700 megawatts, which was our all-time peak, and it's not too far off of our all-time summer peak, just to give you an example of how much electricity was being used. And sometimes that leads to overloading of transformers in substations or on poles. So a lot of transformers were, they were pulling, electricity beyond the rated capacity of, so some transformer issues. And lastly, as Commissioner Scametta said, despite a lot of good-hearted Cajuns having four-wheel drive pickup trucks, they're not trained to drive in the ice and snow. So many of the poles that we did lose, which is the most time-consuming restoration, is to go set a new pole in challenging conditions, were caused by members of the public vehicle accidents.
Mark, anything? Same, yeah. I figured. And so I asked that because I think one of the things that I would like this commission to do, and I know I've talked with Secretary Fry about inviting Dr. Lawrence Kahn from Tulane, one of the only vegetation management study professors, to talk about this, because I know this is going to be an ongoing issue, and not just for weather events. I mean, I know the commission's been engaged with the select committee on beetles at the legislature, because they have played a significant role, surprisingly, in vegetation management and causing outages. So I see this as a holistic problem that is not just as frequent as we looked at. So I wanted to thank you for your timeliness, and also I want us all collaboratively. I think the outage map that we have on the commission is such a great tool. I know if we got some more resources, we can do more. And so I would love to work with my colleagues in the commission to see how potentially, I know the legislators appreciate that tool, but and Jessica works so hard on it to make sure that we can build a system that is actually producing a lot more data and information that we can get out to the services that Commissioner Kusan talked about that our local governments do. So while this one was not catastrophic, I appreciate the work that allows us to build in systems and structures for when we do potentially have something that's a little bit more catastrophic, that allows us to get that information out there. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anything else? Well, thanks, fellas.
Thank you.
And then
Okay, Catherine?
asked Atmos and Centerpoint as well, just to give a brief update on how the natural gas grid did as well.
Yeah, come on up.
And while they're coming up, one thing I had stepped out, and I think Larry may have touched on this briefly. Winter Storm Uri, I guess, which would be the most recent event to compare this to. We had max gen events both in SPP and MISO, where all generation that could run was running. We had some curtailment of load issues. I don't think we ever got past conservation operations in either MISO or SPP in this event. So the grid itself performed much better than it did in Uri, despite the widespread cold. That's more of a facet of the cold weather than anything.
Any problems? What's your story?
And there you go, thank you.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Francis, Vice President, Rates and Regulatory Affairs for Atmos Energy. As you're aware, Louisiana experienced extreme cold weather events in January during the weeks of January 6th and January 20th, including the historic record snowfalls of Winter Storm Enzo. In the days leading up to the winter weather events, Atmos took a number of steps to prepare its system ahead of time, including we examined our systems and our gas supply. We pulled ahead work orders so that customer work orders would be completed ahead of the storm. And in addition, we voluntarily suspended disconnects in the days ahead of the storm. During the storm, we continued to monitor our systems, and we provided operational resources where needed and continued to suspend non-emergency disconnects per Commission's general orders around extreme weather. As a result of the work leading up to these events, Atmos systems performed very reliably during the winter storm. Gas supply was uninterrupted, and on the whole, our gas system pressures remained within limits to provide reliable service. While we did experience 2 localized service outages, these impacted less than 0.5% of our total customer base. And for the majority of these customers, we had power back on within 8 hours. And for all available customers, we had gas service back on within 24 hours. So in events like this, as Commissioner Crisson mentioned, Atmos always works with the Commission to keep you all informed of what's going on and how we're responding to it. Utilities is a 24/7 business, and Atmos Energy crews and employees worked hard to coordinate with state and local officials. We communicated with customers, and we performed safe repairs so that our system reliability would be there and that we would be the safest provider of natural gas. That's my prepared remarks. Any questions?
Francis, are we related?
You might be my uncle. For the record, no, sir.
I was trying to help you with the gas, but we're in trouble now. Yeah, I got a son.
I appreciated your comments earlier. Yes, sir.
So I know we had an interesting thing happen during the storm is a lot of the generators on these homes didn't have enough gas because there was such a suction on the gas line for the cold weather. So, and I'm sure y'all are addressing that. Is anything being done about putting more larger lines in or more lines?
Yes, that's a great question, Commissioner, and that is something that's on our radar, and we're currently examining that. To your point, a whole home generator, when it kicks on, that could be 6 to 8 times the load on our gas system versus just normal gas usage. So we are talking with our operations and customer service teams for ways to identify how many of our customers have whole home generators and what areas those are in. And then we'll address how to best handle those. I do know that I've talked with our gas supply specialist who, you all may know, he was my predecessor, Sean Audebert, but we talked about gas supply in these situations with snowstorms and hurricanes. And we have had a really good success of having good constant gas supply for customers during such weather events. But it is an issue that's on our radar and we're examining further. So if we need to address anything, we will definitely do that.
Well, you know, on electricity, we have a demand charge on electricity to justify building generators and transmission to be fair to everyone. And there's no demand charge on natural gas. And I bet you a lot of those folks would mind paying a demand charge to know they have gas during the hurricane or the cold weather. Okay, well, I don't want to take up all the time. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually going to, Brian, ask you a question very similar to the chairman. And so I guess my question is, I know there's been some issues of identifying where those generators are, especially since the permitting process is typically coming from local government. And so I'm curious what has, in your service territory, been those conversations with local government, and also what should we be doing in some of those conversations? Because I mean, I think why I find this to be an issue is especially when we're talking about resource adequacy, right? When we're talking about what that peak demand, I don't think you are making the choices of considering all of the additional demand that would be used from a generator, especially as we, in one of the last exhibits, talked about how many of our heating and cooling is coming from the electric side. So I'm trying to see from the gas side, what are you looking at, knowing that there's kind of this outside control of your demand that's typically coming from the electric side, because that's where our heating and cooling infrastructure is on.
Good question, Commissioner, and that is something that we're looking at. You know, at Atmos, we're very focused on safety and providing reliable service, especially in extreme weather events, winter storms, and hurricanes. Specific to any conversations with state and local officials, I'm not as familiar with those conversations myself, but I could certainly come back to you with our operations experts who have had those conversations and get you more details. Certainly the permitting is one side of it. We're also looking at when we go out to make leak surveys or perform work at homes, just assessing if they have a home generator and tagging that in our system, as well as potentially customer surveys could be another way to find out exactly where that demand load is coming from.
No, and thank you. And while I have you, I also want to thank Atmos for the community meeting you held in my district in Avondale last week about the situation of the explosion. I know my constituents were very pleased with the information that you provided, the updates on the infrastructure that you're updating. And so while I had Atmos at the table, I wanted to thank you for working with my office, Pastor Browd in Avondale, and the entire Avondale community to address the situation, and we hope to continue that work forward.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Commissioner. I was there and really enjoyed getting to meet Pastor Brown and the community. And you're correct. The feedback that we got was the community was really appreciative that we were there. We've been transparent with the community and we've been accessible to them. Just as a matter of point on that, we had a number of questions just as we were doing construction, how we would return their yards and sidewalks to the shape that they were in prior to any construction that we did. And the next day we had people in the community, our crews were working and made those adjustments. So we've been very responsive to the community, and we were very appreciative to have a chance to appear in the community and address their questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good afternoon, Jim DeSherry with CenterPoint Energy. As you all heard, we had a record storm here recently. CenterPoint serves a lot of South Louisiana. We saw temperatures down as low as 4 degrees on one reading in Jennings, Louisiana. So very, very cold temperatures for us. Our system was resilient. We didn't lose any gas systems. We maintained pressure. And we believe this was attributed to investments we've made into the system through pipe replacement, pressure improvement projects, and advanced monitoring equipment where we can identify pressure issues more quickly. The event served as a good data point for us. It's a good test to see how the system would hold up in a record event. We are currently evaluating data right at this point to determine if there's any improvements that we can make. I spoke with a gentleman who's been in the company for 43 years in our South Louisiana operations, and he mentioned how well the system held up. At this point, the closest next storm was in the 80s, and he said it was a marked difference now, and a lot of this can be going back to the investment we've made in the system.
Anybody else? Y'all bring us some suggestions on how we can get more gas out in the communities. I think it'll help the overall balance of electricity and gas for fuel. Well, thank y'all for coming.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
See if anybody from that Southwest Gas is here.
Southwest. Any of the small gas companies here?
Randy, that's Randy.
South Coast?
South Coast.
I think it's Randy.
They still here?
Is there South Coast here?
This is Randy, right?
Yes, Commissioner, they are not here today.
Randy's here.
You want him to
Questions, but I've not asked them about this particular topic.
Were they here early? Were they here earlier, or was it just you here earlier?
Repeat what you said.
And to be fair, did not ask South Coast to be here to talk about exhibit number 12. So just,
They had another exhibit, so I'm
They-
just curious
they
if,
did,
if they were
yes.
here for that and we just didn't catch them, or were they well represented?
Hello, Commissioner. Randy Young on behalf of South Coast Gas and Pierreport Natural Gas. So no, I was here today and prepared to answer any questions on the rate issues, but they were not here today, and we just were not aware of this topic.
Fair enough.
So-
Well, one of his lines of question affected some of that smaller gas companies. And
Yes.
so just to the extent that they can get back with us on those issues and let us know what the status is of their studies from last year's storms, I think that'd be a good method of communication.
Yes, Commissioner, I will definitely follow up with them and provide that information to the commissioners.
Okay,
Thank
good,
you.
Randy, thank you.
And I know we're moving to the next exhibit and we didn't call them up, but I did want to, at least in my district, thank DIMCO for their outage reports. I want to say the hourly reports with the locations, with the districts is extremely helpful, especially for me to communicate with constituents and as we get constituent calls. So I wanted to give a personal shout out to DIMCO for that report. I know at sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, it's an email every hour, but I'm not going to complain because if I didn't get it every hour, I'd probably be mad at you. So to Randy, the team, Jeff, I just wanted to thank you all. And all the companies, right? National Water, there were Magnolia. The communication was just impressive to give us timely information. And so I didn't want anybody to go unmissed, even if we didn't call you up here. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, what's next, Catherine?
so we do have a couple of ratifications under Exhibit 12. I will try to make these as brief as possible. The first is a discussion and possible vote to ratify a vote cast by Commissioner Skrmetta, acting as the Commission's representative on the organization of MISO States Regional State Committee of MISO. It is for ratification of a vote cast on February 4th of 2025 by Commissioner Skrmetta, and we followed all the protocols set forth in Special Order 17/2019 to consult with the chairman and the secretary prior to the vote. OMS submitted feedback to MISO addressing MISO's expedited resource additional proposal, and those comments supported the proposal but opposed allowing an extension of the commercial operation date beyond the initial generator interconnection. And based on staff's recommendations, Commissioner Skrmetta voted against that OMS feedback due to the position on the extension. So staff recommends that the commission ratify Commissioner Skrmetta's vote on February 4th, 2025, acting as the commission's representative. And Commissioner Skrmetta, please nod if you are abstaining.
Commissioner Skrmetta abstains in this vote.
Make a motion, we accept Commissioner Skrmetta's votes at MISO.
I'll second.
Any objection? Hearing none, moving
So
forward.
the next vote ratification is a discussion and possible vote to ratify several votes cast by Chairman Francis, acting as the Commission's representative on the Regional State Committee of the Southwest Power Pool. This is on for votes taken on February 3rd of 2025. And again, staff followed all the protocols set forth in Special Order 17/2019 to consult with the Vice Chair and the Secretary prior to these votes. The voting items are as follows. The first voting item adopted a cost allocation method for provisional load that directly assigns transmission upgrade cost. The second voting item approved a long-term planning reserve margin policy paper establishing a long-term planning reserve margin to provide load-serving entities and state regulators more notice. The third voting item approved a 38% planning reserve margin for the winter season and a 17% planning reserve margin for the summer season. The fourth voting item approved an expedited resource adequacy study. The fifth voting item approved congestion hedging improvements to give more opportunities to receive long-term congestion rights. And the sixth voting opportunity approved a request for an extension from FERC of the 6-month engagement period under the FERC Order 1920. The chair voted in favor of all of these items. Staff recommends that the commission ratify Chairman Francis's votes cast on February 3rd, 2025 as the commission's representative of the SPP RSC, and I'm assuming, Chair, you abstain.
Abstain.
Make a motion to accept this as abstain.
Motion by Commissioner
Second.
Cusson, seconded by Commissioner Skrmetta. Any discussion? Hearing none, it's approved.
We have a couple of RTO ratifications as well. These are ratifications of interventions of the commission in RTO-related or other FERC-related proceedings. This is ratifications on behalf of the commission, and due to the short deadlines allowed for these interventions, if advanced commission approval is not possible, the executive secretary may authorize the initial interventions subject to ratification at a following B&E. Interventions were filed on the Commission's behalf for the purposes of monitoring issues related to MISO and other FERC proceedings in FERC docket numbers ER 25-937, ER 25-943, EL 14-12, and EL 15-45. Staff recommends that the commission ratify these actions.
Move to approve the ratifications in those mentioned dockets.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Scametta, seconded by Commissioner Lewis. Any discussion or opposition? Hearing none, approved.
And we have one last agenda item to get through. It is Exhibit 13, and that's docket number U37371. This is Entergy's Formula Rate Plan Evaluation Report for the test year ending December 31st, 2023. It's a discussion and possible vote on an unopposed joint report at the Commissioner Scarmetta's request. On August 27th of 24, Entergy filed its evaluation report for the test year, and Lug and OxyChem filed timely interventions. Staff submitted its report on November 18th, 2024, finding that the test year complied with the provisions of the rate case settlement and identified 2 disputed issues. On December 16th of 2024, Entergy submitted its response to staff's report, and company noted that based on discussions with staff, they believed that each of the issues raised in staff's report could be amicably resolved. Based on additional information provided by Entergy related to these 2 issues, an amicable resolution was reached. On January 14th of 2025, staff and Entergy filed the unopposed joint report of Entergy's test year formula rate plan and noted that all disputed issues had been resolved as there is no rate impact associated with the resolution. Staff recommends that the Commission accept the unopposed joint report filed into the record on January 14th, 2025.
Chair moves to accept the staff recommendation.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Scametta.
Yes, sir.
Any opposition or further comments? Hearing done. It is accepted. Is that it?
We have to have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn by Scametta.
Second.
Second by Crisson. It's
Take care of
over.
yourself.